Good evening, welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting on this Monday, October 2nd, October already, 2017. To get us started, Mr. Clerk, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Certainly.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know what, do you mind if you just stay standing just for a moment, please? We received a proclamation. Didn't necessarily need to receive this proclamation, but I'm going to read it. Please be advised that as a mark of respect for the victims of the senseless act of violence perpetrated on October 1st, 2017 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and in accordance with the presidential proclamation, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker has ordered that the United States flag and the Commonwealth flag be lowered to half-staff at all state buildings immediately and remain so until sunset Friday, October 6th. So we are complying with that in Littleton, and I just ask that we just take a moment and take just a moment of silence and keep in mind those that are affected by this, and literally I think it's affected every American. So just a quick moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay. So our agenda is as follows. We will get into our reading our mail. Then we have second item on the agenda at 6:40, Town Boards, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, represented by Anna Houston, will be here to give us some information, presentation on supporting documentation for the special town meeting, Article 12. Mass EOEEA Planning Assistance Grant Application. Can you help me out with the EOEEA, Keith?
Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs.
He just knows those things off the top of his head. Then we'll have an opportunity for public input. The only thing I ask is that if you would like to be recognized, just raise your hand, be recognized by the chair, and state your name and your address, and any comments should come through the chair. Then we'll have an opportunity for the members to give updates on different things that are going on in town. And item 4 will be relative to our special town meeting on October 30th, and we'll be adopting article recommendations. Item 5 is a public hearing for the road layout at McIntosh Lane, and we received some documentation today on that, so it'll help us in this deliberation. Item 6 is a public hearing for the Cooper Farm parcels proposed transfer of ownership to the town. We'll have a discussion on that. That's relative to special town meeting article number 9. We'll have an opportunity for the town administrator, assistant town administrator, to give us an update. Police and fire departments have some good news for us to update us on, a gift that we'll be receiving and accepting, hopefully. Not sure. We do have to get into executive session, so we will be going into executive session for a collective bargaining strategy meeting, and then we will not come out of executive session. We'll adjourn forthwith. So, Mr. Town Administrator, Mr. Bergman, please start us off with the mail.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, a few items. First, we received notice of a grant from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. It's $4,900 for recycling. It was submitted by the Highway Department, and we've been getting a grant like this about every year, so congratulations again to Highway for their work. We have an invitation from Neshoba Valley Technical High School for a ribbon cutting event that's being held on Wednesday, October 11th at 1 p.m., which will be attended by Governor Charlie Baker. And if there are members who would like to attend that, please let us know. We've done some RSVPs already, but if others would like to go, we can so inform. Anyone who's planning on going?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So,
Maybe you have to-
anyone?
Keith, Did you
Yep,
get that?
yep, okay. So, not sure?
I'm on the bubble if I don't get selected for jury duty.
Oh, okay.
That was a little hint there, chief. Know anybody at Ayer District Court? Yeah, I'm scheduled for
Yeah,
jury
usually,
duty.
if you say that you're the appointing authority for the chief of police, usually they let you go. Worked for me when I
Nice.
got off jury duty in Provincetown.
All right, maybe I'll have to leverage that so I can get a lunch out of Neshoba Tech.
Then we have another letter announcing the Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission's next meeting, which will be on Thursday, October 12th at 11 a.m. This is in Dover. And it's at this event that the Littleton Police Department will be officially accredited. So, well done. And again, if there are those who would like to attend, let us know, and then we will RSVP.
Is there going to be a caravan going down, Chief, Keith?
Yeah, last time I think I got a ride with somebody, but I might have, actually, I may have had to go by myself, because I had to,
You did, you were.
because I had a different,
You were in Boston, I think, beforehand, right, weren't you?
no, but I was going to be going to another location after the meeting, so. I got lost, and then I wound up at Tom Harrington's office in Wellesley, so,
It's right in the way.
yeah, well, okay. But we can we try to
Yes, we will.
leave, so it's like 9:30, 9:30?
I'll get on, I don't remember how long.
Yeah, it's about an hour.
I can tell you.
Well, at 9:30, it'll take less time than at 7:30, so.
6.
That's a great event, don't want to miss that. Next is a conference, a Massachusetts Green Careers Conference, which is this Thursday, October 5th, and I've been invited to present as a speaker on a panel on municipalities and green infrastructure, and they actually, it was from the advertising, they want to hear about the smart sewer, among other sustainable things that we're doing. So I'm happy to talk about that and green communities and other, having Air Liquide, hydrogen, manufacturer here, so it's a lot of great stuff. And they did ask me also to present on climate, and I have not been able to turn down a request when someone asks for that, so. Next, we have a client advisory from Town Council Miaris and Harrington describing new Attorney General regulations on open meeting law, which are highlighted in a three-page cover memo from Tom. He's available. We can have him do training or whatever for town boards and staff. Also in the packet is a letter, which we got, I have to say, rather belatedly and surprisingly, from the Attorney General approving. Remember when we said that the Attorney General, that she had not yet approved the temporary moratorium on marijuana that was passed by the May town meeting? Well, it was approved on Friday, and it's retroactive to the May 1st town meeting. So my next question to Town Council, which we'll have a response for in time for Thursday night's planning board hearing, is whether and to what extent I would have to say, the preferred language of a zoning moratorium that we've been working out in recent weeks can supplant the one that was passed before. I didn't read it closely, but I think that they're amending the same section of the zoning bylaw, in which case, if it now reads one way and we have an article to have it read another way, I would hope that would be enough to replace one with the other. But we'll get some guidance from Town Council on that. I just wanted to call to your attention a late received notice I got from the Highway Department announcing that See-Click Fix is being launched effective today. And that's the new citizen reporting tool that you can do on your app, take a picture, and then send it to the Highway Department, and they fix it. So, and you can all test it the sun comes up tomorrow, so we're excited about that. Then we received a letter and followed by a proposal from Kara Jeffries, 3 Manchester Drive, requesting budding tax title property. So we can, I'd suggest we're going to be discussing the tax title property later in the agenda when we consider the special town meeting article to that effect. And that might be, you might want to take that up at that time.
Agreed.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bergman. All right, so, ready, Anna?
I'm sure you have noticed that.
Wherever you're more comfortable. If you're more comfortable up there, the microphones are fine right there. It's entirely up to you, whenever you're more comfortable. Sounds good.
That's the question myself.
Mr. Chair, Selectmen, thank you very much for having me here today to help answer any questions about the proposed funding request. You all were provided with a 2-page handout that attempts to answer some of the questions that you might have, but if you have more, I'd be more than happy to answer those right now.
So there's $80,000 worth of funding requested through Article 12 at the special town meeting on October 30th. And there were some questions last Monday night about where the funding goes and that kind of thing. So if it's any particular questions you want to
I did
jump
have
in?
some questions. So the first thing I wanted to mention, Anna, was in the proposal that the chairman, Mike Zeldin, brought before us on August 11th. It recommends certain portions of the master plan, references certain portions of the master plan for consulting services. And it lists 1, 8, 35, 60 on pages 175 through 84. And I read through those, and unless I'm reading it wrong, 35 is to evaluate the feasibility of constructing a multi-purpose intergenerational community center that meets the needs of all residents. I was just wondering why that was included.
So when we're considering what the revitalization of town, of the Littleton Town Common is going to be, it could include any number of different buildings, services, activities, different types of retail, different types of businesses. And so the attempt was just to try to be comprehensive in terms of this could very well include a community center. So
Okay.
that was the reason.
Okay, and so that must also pertain, that same response to 60. Reference 60, evaluate the recommendations of the upcoming town hall space needs, study and determine next steps.
Correct.
So
And
same
and in
thing.
fact, that town study is important because, again, if there is something that is going to be decided upon by the Board of Selectmen for the town hall, then that needs to be incorporated into any plans for the revitalization of town common.
Okay. And it was, with respect to the second request for the change of zoning in the Beaverbrook area, I just had some questions about some of the zoning requests, because we did do that. We did have the Littleton Village zoning report completed a few years back. So I just was
The
wondering.
village common, let's see. So the village common district? Is that what
Yes,
you're referring
yes,
to?
Yeah,
Overlay, right.
yeah.
So it's my understanding that the two facets of the zoning that we're talking about includes a diagnostic, which is supposed to make sure that Littleton is in compliance with state and federal laws, bylaws.
Okay,
And as a result, it's my understanding that there are some things that have happened recently since that was updated. I believe it was 98 or 98?
I think it's 98.
98.
Yeah.
And so just to make sure that we're in compliance. So it's sort of like starting with a clean slate and saying, okay, Littleton is now in compliance with everything that we need to be in compliance with, specifically in the common, because that's what we want to be able to work on.
Okay. And I just wanted to say I'm in full support of the master plan, the update. I really appreciate all the work that the implementation committee's putting into this whole process. But I just did have some questions about what is being requested as far as implementation timeframe, and what is the timeframe for the sewer on the common to be, that project to be completed? Do we know what the timeframe is for that?
That would be to us.
Yeah,
That's to Chuck, or, no, who's the chair?
Yeah,
Who's the-
Chase and.
Also, Chase and Paul.
I think
I've handed that
I
off.
just-
Yeah, the
yeah.
last-
I mean, as evidenced by last meeting, there are so many things that go into answering that question that we don't have answers to yet, that I think it would be premature to put a timeline on it. I mean,
Okay.
anything other than as soon as technically feasible.
Okay.
Which could be, 5 years.
We know this much, it won't be next spring, but by then we'll be applying for all the state and federal money that we think we're eligible for, so that perhaps by the following cycle, is that?
I think that generally fits a
So at least-
timeline, and then, imagine then from there, we could be looking at, another year or two before something actually starts to
Right,
get.
right.
So you're looking at a few years at a minimum until
Right.
something happens.
So if we move forward with the implementation requested in Article 12, and there's a gap between the completion of that study and implementation of the actual sewer, bringing sewer to the common, do you think that this study will then be obsolete at that point? Like, say, five years down the road, we finally bring in sewer and we start to revitalize the common with sewer, yet we've done this work here in 2012, 2018.
Well, I can understand your concern, certainly.
Right.
So the way that might help to take a look at this is if you start working down the path with one particular town study or the sewer study, and you want to start doing work on this, they all work together, and that's one of the facets that I think when we were on the Master Plan Update Steering Committee was constantly coming up, and that is that it's evolving, and it's constantly going to be based off of what new information you have.
Right.
And so what I would say is, if these scenarios are created based off of all the wonderful work that's already been done, we don't want to reinvent the wheel here. If we have a couple different scenarios that are created, and we say, yes, that particular picture is what we want our town to look like, and we're going to be working toward that, then whether it's the sewer study or any other work that's going on, then everybody can start to say, well, this is now going to be working in conjunction with it, or wait a minute, there's something that we need to fix because it doesn't quite match up. So all I can say is that it will be an iterative process, because we don't have complete information.
Right. So, and I guess my other question is that we don't own the property on the common, the town doesn't own it. It's all owned by individual stakeholders, so to speak, and there's, some of them are more vested than others. I know that Northern Bank has recently bought up a large portion of Great Road, and I believe that another transaction recently took place with another large landowner. So have any of the large stakeholders been consulted? I know that's part of Article 12, is to approach them, but the way I'm reading it is to get public input, which we've had a lot of public input about what people would like to see on the common, but where do these individuals fall into this? Because while we're doing the work under Article 12, they may have plans that we don't know about because no one's approached them and talked to them, to my knowledge. So I was just wondering about that.
Well, if I recall correctly, that was one of the tasks that the folks working on the sewer were going to be taking on.
Right.
And again, working collaboratively, because all the different committees in town are working toward figuring out how to move forward together.
Right.
And so if we are able to get their input in advance of creating any of the scenarios, or we create the scenario, and then they have something to respond to. That's really part of what creating the various scenarios and the economic impact allow all of us to do, is to be able to go out and have those conversations. They won't be set in stone, but rather to say, based off of what the town has said we want to have happen in the common, here it is. What are your thoughts? What do you think about this? Again, if we can have those conversations in advance, terrific. If you all have that opportunity to go out and have the conversations. But what's happened, I think, sometimes is if we go out and we have a conversation with a stakeholder and we don't quite know yet the answers to, well, what do you want to build? Well, how much is it going to cost? What will that really do for the town? And if we don't have some of those answers yet, then it may not be as productive of a session.
Can I just-
Yeah,
Mr. Glady had a comment. I don't know if.
Yeah, it's, I think Anna's doing a terrific job of tackling a complicated subject, and I think Cindy's has done a great job of digging into a level of detail that presents an opportunity to remind ourselves of where we're at. When the master plan process launched, and we're lucky we have our former chair right here with us tonight. Good to see him. It was, an acknowledgement that we had a previous master plan that had been adopted a dozen years before, which kind of fell down a little bit when it came to the implementation phase. So we're very conscious now that we've adopted another one that we need to do the implementation. What does the implementation involve? It involves taking pieces that are already in place, under the guidance of the master plan, which expresses the wishes of the town, and fills in those other pieces that we don't have, and make sure that they all jibe together. So in terms of the overlay district zoning, that's one wonderful piece of work that already was done before the master plan started. But that kind of took place within a vacuum, and it was consciously done in something of a vacuum, in that we didn't know. We didn't have the guidance of a master plan. We do now. We didn't know what direction we're going on a sewer. We do now. So those pieces, but there's still a level of detail that we have to get to. I mean, if you read the master plan part on the common area and economic development, there's, the train kind of stops at a certain point, frustratingly, before you get to the station, and that's the next step we need to get to, which is, that's about as fine a level of detail as we've got. And that was, visioning sessions presented in, I think, a pretty creative form. But what we need now are the technical professionals who can come in, take that, not go backwards, take the input that the town's already given us, take the knowledge of what we already have in terms of forward-thinking new zoning and overlay district, take the knowledge that we're pursuing sewer, and come up with more detailed plans of what the common area can look like. And absolutely, private property owners are going to have to be addressed. They will be specifically addressed in the sewering process. That's explicitly part of the plan. In fact, that's the next phase we're at. But until you have something to show them of what things could look like, until you have meetings where you put some of that stuff up on the table and garner some of their input or tell them what some of the examples are, we can't really get to that next phase. So that's the part where we need the professional planners to come in and help put that piece together for us.
Right. I guess I would have preferred if the large property owners had been already consulted at this point, just to
Well,
see.
in the master plan process, they were, same as
Right.
anyone else was.
Right. But just to see if there's anything they might have in the works that we don't know about is I guess, my concern.
But that's something that can be certainly done as time goes on with the implementation thing.
Right.
It's not a factor that should bring us to a halt right now.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm looking at it differently. I'm trying to give it an inclusive point of view, and just spending, $80,000 on the study, where some of it, implementation might hinge on having sewer in place, and we don't know when the sewer is going to come in. Like, to me, that is still all up in the air, and just not having had conversations. I know through the master plan, I guess there were conversations with the large stakeholders, but on a more personal level, just to see, especially since Northern Bank now owns some land on Great Road, just to see if there's anything going on that we don't know about before we commit to spending more money on this.
Well, what if, as part of this process, there was an effort, a commitment to talk with them first, that they are the first stakeholders to talk with and have those conversations. But knowing that what we hear from them will be incorporated into what we have from the master plan as well.
And if I may,
Right.
there's also been some initial conversations with Kevin Mon when Paul and I were first champions for the sewer project, the smart sewering of the common area.
Right.
And just to reiterate, we're talking not necessarily about the two triangles of grassy area that we call the common. We're talking about the common area that's included in the overlay district.
That's correct.
So the Mons have been included to some degree, and they've given us an idea of what it is that they hope to do with that chunk of land that they have from Robinson Road down to their existing bank. So some of that has been included, but I think what's important to remember and to understand relative to Article 12 is that we've got some iterations. We've got some wishes, some dreams that we've slapped onto some pretty cool displays to give us an idea of what might be.
Right.
And I think the task of a consultant would be to let us know what those physical revitalizations could be, with or without sewer in the common, and then what the economic impact would be to Littleton were we to make progress and to dive into this, including cost-benefit analysis and that kind of thing.
And what next steps you'd have to take to get there, which we don't really know yet at this
Right,
point.
right. And I think that, I'm not sure that we necessarily have the tools in our toolbox to do it ourselves,
Right.
whether it be us, the Master Plan Implementation Committee, the Planning Board, the Zoning Board, any number of boards that need to be involved in the process, but whereas, and I'm just tapping into what you and Mike had presented to us previously, Anna, I think the intent is to help us to understand the economic impact and look at
Correct.
what benefits we could.
Correct, that's huge, because depending on what the scenario has to offer, we will be able to identify, well, what is the potential revenue if we work on making scenario A a realization versus scenario B versus C. We'd be talking about job creation, what kind of jobs could potentially be created, what kind of other housing or improvements for the town that could be included in each of those different scenarios. There are a lot of what-ifs, and
Well, there's certain services that people cited that we don't have in town that they would like to see in the master plan, and it's specific to the common area. This next phase could help identify what will it take to get them there.
Right.
Whether it's an outreach method, whether it's just, some of them are simply solved by the sewer. Some aren't. Some are going to take parking measures, other infrastructure things.
Right.
Zoning changes.
Zoning
Right,
changes. you name
right.
it, yeah.
I guess I just wish there was a smaller window between Article 12 and, I wish we were closer to completion of the sewer project.
Oh, amen on that?
You know what, I've seen in the past, we do a study, we get the report, we don't implement. 5 years come down, we do the study, we get the report, we don't implement. And those studies cost money, and I'm just concerned that we're going to spend this money, and we're going to have scenarios, right, with sewer, without sewer, all these different variables, and we're not going to be able to implement because we're still in the process of bringing sewer to the common, which makes a big difference about what is going to happen in that area of town. So that's my biggest concern, is that we're spending money prematurely in a process that maybe we should wait a year from now or wait 2 years from now, when we're a little bit more advanced in the sewer project, and we have a better opportunity to implement what we find. So that's just my feeling
Mr. Chair, can I-
about it.
Mr. Knox?
At this point, we've all seen, just like you said, we've all seen plans that have been made and put on shelves and never used. In this case, I see, and I'm proud of the work that the Master Plan Committee did, the hard work that Maren put in. We're at a point now where we have a master plan that's so well thought out that we have to continue it. And I see this as a continuance. Mr. Glavy mentioned the last one we had, that may date back to 2002. And that fell on its face because we didn't continue this process. I just see this as this goes right along with the sewer and everything else. We don't want to come to a stop right now. Constantly, people in the past have talked to me about the common. How come there's no one in this store? How come no one's there? It all has to do with the work that's been done, and now all we're doing is for it to continue. I'd hate to see us not give the $80,000, and then it comes off all right now, right when we still should be going forth.
Well, it's one piece of the process, though, Joe. In honesty, there's many other components in the master plan that we could look at and
No doubt.
initiate
Yeah.
outside of the common, like Taylor Street, Foster Street's mentioned in the master plan, for example. So that's just,
We can't lose sight of the fact, though, that the implementation committee is also keeping in mind what our goals are.
Right.
In the common area and the development of the common area
right.
with the connection to what master plan.
Right. And to just clear, I'm not against this, it's just the timing is my concern, so.
Well,
Mr. Chair, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just, shut up.
With respect to some of our goals, though, and the things that we're championing, to the extent that Paul and I are championing the sewer, I actually see this as feeding into the sewer. Something's got to come first, and so using this tool, presuming, we get what we expect to get, I actually see it as enhancing what we do with the sewer. Now, I expect that only 2/3 of what we get here will actually be useful. The problem is we don't know which 2/3 of it we'll have. So it's got to be iterative to the extent that we do something that isn't 100% going to be useful. You're absolutely right, Cindy. There are things that we can't predict.
Right.
But I see it feeding into that goal, which will then feed back into it and so on and so forth.
And as far as what comes first, I mean, one thing that came through loud and clear from the participants in the master plan process is the common is priority number one. That was consistent throughout, so I think we're just following the wishes of the town and doing that. And I don't think we need to wait for the finalization of the sewer process to figure out whether we have parking problems and solutions or,
Right.
rerouting of roads or sidewalks or, that sort of thing.
Right,
Anyway.
right. So do we know what the time frame is on this, Anna? Do we have any idea? Say it does pass on the 30th?
So if it passes, then the process would be to request at least 3 bids of organizations, consulting groups that have done this kind of work before, and working through any kind of consulting piece could take months in terms of being able to actually establish. So as an example, if the funding is available from the town, then it will probably take another month to get the bids out, another month probably to receive the responses, then interviews and background needs to be checked on the organizations to make sure. So we're talking about springtime probably before we can actually get to having any meaningful conversations, such as the kickoff that I identified. So it will probably be several months down the road. And then to actually accomplish the work will probably take at least another, my guess would be another 6 months as well. But given the fact that this kind of work hasn't been done here in Littleton, this is going to be a first time for doing this kind of economic impact work. And so those are the best timeframes that I can provide at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously we have to adhere to certain national laws as far as putting it out to bid and writing the bid documents, that kind of thing.
Right,
So I would say the most aggressive that you could potentially have somebody on board would be 3 months, but you have the holidays and everything in there, so getting people in, like you said, for interviews and that kind of thing may delay that a little bit. But I would say somewhere between 3 and 9 months, probably 9 to 12 months before we have a deliverable. So
That sound about right, Keith?
that would be my estimation.
I think 9 to 12 months is a reasonable timeframe a realistic timeframe of when you'd have the work product. And but during that time, what are we going to be doing on the sewer in those periods of time? We're going to be addressing some of the technical issues of sewer capacities and so on. And I think it might be very useful to have something else informing us on what preferred uses are that the town would like to see, so that if you've got finite sewer capacity and you have to choose from among different, things that you have, that there's an expression from a process where you've engaged the affected property owners and the public of what sorts of uses might actually want to be there. Because it's not, the sewer capacity is not unlimited. So,
Right.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, I think PJ was looking to speak.
I saw him.
Oh,
Mr. Avella?
Thanks, sir. Paul Vella, 94 Grist Mill, Chairman of the Master Plan Update Steering Committee. Hopefully this adds to the discussion. It seems like the general tenor is a consensus towards supporting what the implementation committee wants to do. I'd offer this, that the vision I presented to you all, about 6-7 months ago is what the implementation committee should be. They're greatly exceeding that. They've rolled up their sleeves greatly and getting their elbows very dirty with elbow grease there. So you can be proud of them for the work they're doing there. I have reviewed the proposal that has been brought forward for you, and I really think it fits exactly as Mr. Clavey suggested. As you may recall, we said the master plan, we even bolded it in the cover letter to you all in the town, and that it's an overarching guidance plan for the leadership of the town and the residents. And I think the way you're going down this road with both the common revitalization, excuse me, and the zoning overview and review of it is spot on. And if you allow me an analogy, if you would, and hopefully Ms. Napoli, it addresses your concern about going forward and when do we actually begin something. Most of you know my background, I've been serving the United States Air Force. But coincidentally, they're going through what they call squadron revitalization now. 26 years of war, being deployed all over the country, all over the world, has really taken a toll on the squadrons. So they're depleted, and that revitalization process is ongoing. And if I may quote from the general officer that's running that process, he emphasized, the team is not waiting until the end of the process to fix problems they already understand. If there's something we find that we think is more immediately actionable, we're going to start working on that right away. And I'd offer that we're in the same position. I'll show you what does a squadron and our common have in common, so to speak. Absolutely nothing, but a process to go about what we want to accomplish. It's eerily similar, if you really get down to it. So I hope that helps, at least a perspective I'm offering as to why I think we should go forward. You mentioned Northern Bank, and they have purchased that property, as we all understand. Surely, and this is my personal vision of it, rather than that becoming another strip mall from where they are now down in Robinson, it becomes something more, and I'm going to use Lexington as an example. If you've been through Lexington Common and how that everything is right up against the road, parking is behind it. Is that something we could do? We talk about bike lanes. It's a short distance. It'd only be maybe 2,000 feet at the most. But we put 2,000 feet of bike lanes between the road and the buildings that will go there. So that's the direct engagement, certainly with the owners of the property. To go there and say, what would you like to do? Certainly that's part of this. But I think also us going to the landowners, the major stakeholders, all the stakeholders for that matter, is here's what we're thinking about doing. Here's how we can work with you. How do you want to work with us to achieve what we'd like to see? Where we get edifices that look more colonial, if you will, or at least more quintessential, bucolic, small New England town that we claim we'd like to be. So that's the engagement that I think we can go forward with, and hopefully that helps address some of your concerns there. I think the money that they put out is in a reasonable ballpark. I didn't get down with sharp pencil and go down the exact numbers with them, but certainly when I saw the proposal, it seemed to make sense based on what we've been through historically and what we expect out of those studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you refer to us as the Black Sheep Squadron, or?
That was the Marines.
Ooh, all right. Any further debate on item number 2A? All right. Comfortable with the answers that you received?
I appreciate it, Anna, sincerely. Thank you so much for coming to clarify my questions.
And would you like me to also talk about the potential?
Well,
grant?
you're ahead.
Okay, well, I didn't know what to talk about.
yeah, let's get motion number 1 first.
All right.
This one.
Mr. Clerk?
There's 2 motions. The first motion is what you've been
Is,
discussing.
right. So entertain motion number 1.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to support October 30th, 2017 Special Town Meeting, Article 12, Item B, for $80,000 to be extended by the Master Plan Implementation Committee. Costs associated with implementation of the master plan, including development of a master plan for Littleton Common and a comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further debate? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I didn't vote. I'll say aye now.
You re-eyed?
I didn't aye the first time.
Okay, so it is unanimous. Okay. All right, so we got that down. Now you can talk to us about the grant.
Thank you. Have to make sure I understand and follow process. As a offshoot of what we've just been discussing, there is an opportunity that came into Lauren's inbox that I believe is something that Littleton should definitely seize, because it is an opportunity to be able to obtain a grant for up to $50,000 to do the work that we were just discussing. Lauren and I attended the Bidders Conference in Boston on Friday morning and received information that essentially covered what you all have in your packets, but in a little bit more depth, and we were able to ask specific questions as to whether or not our projects, there are probably 20 people there from various towns, as to whether or not our specific projects would potentially meet their project definitions. And when I spoke about the revitalization of Littleton Common and the associated zoning change, zoning amendments, and that was all coming from our recently finished master plan, he said yes, definitely. And in fact, he seemed a little enthused, if I may use that word, about the economic impact of this and the fact that we were planning to do outreach. That seemed to be very important for what they want. They would look highly upon a proposal that encourages a lot of outreach, and in this particular case, to everybody from our residents to our property owners and other community members would be vital to getting this done. And so the task at hand is to be able to create a proposal that fits all the criteria by October 23rd. Robin, do you have anything to add?
I think that summed it up very well.
What's unusual about this is I haven't seen a grant application, a grant opportunity like this in quite a while. And the fact that it's about, implementing master plans, and that there's just a lot of things on the checklist of eligible projects that it looks like, that we might be able to put together a very competitive application, in which case the scope of service, the challenge really is, I think, to say, what's the basic scope that you do with the money if it's only town meeting? And then how would you expand that scope to, if we get the grant? And I feel confident in the master plan committee that that's I didn't bring I'm holding this up as a representation of a master plan. There are page, you probably have your copy right there, page after page of things, and just so long as they adhere to the, to the list of priorities that are in that plan, that I think that it's a good chance to get $50,000 from the state to help us on the effort.
Okay, great. So this would be in addition to what we're looking for?
In addition
at
to
town
what we're
meeting.
asking for at town meeting.
Just to make sure that that's clear.
And I don't think that we certainly would not know by town meeting. We may not know in this calendar year whether we get the grant or not. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And I just, considering all the things that we could be doing to implement the master plan, that we won't have difficulty finding.
Yeah, this isn't the last ask. Don't be spoiler alert, but there'll be
Unless I
more
get
requests for
year.
money now.
Yeah, every year.
So we're asking for another 50,000?
So this would be a grant.
To apply for the
Although-
grant,
to
or is
apply
it
for
50,000?
That's the-
To apply for state grant for $50,000.
Oh, so we're applying for a grant of 50,000.
Right.
To which we would be on the hook for 12.5?
Yes, but the 80 would far exceed
And
the
that's,
required
we
minimum.
can
Yeah.
cross-pollinate with that, okay. There's no restrictions on that.
In fact, if the fact that we had a higher than required local match might give us additional, brownie points in
Okay.
scoring, so.
As in, we're putting our money where our mouth is?
Yes, indeed, because, yeah, they're looking, there's a minimum requirement of 25%, but if you put in more, that you get more, you're scored higher.
Do we sense, I mean, not that I would ever want to pass up the opportunity, do we sense that the timeline on this grant could hold up our progress on certain things if we're waiting to find out if we're getting funded? In other words, some things are going to advance a little faster and other things are going to wait to find out if we have this grant? Or can we sort of, supposing we approve this at town meeting, go ahead 100% and then backfill after the fact with grant?
Yeah, I think the key would be the degree to which the grant-funded activities are distinct, and, you know, so that the contractor, the consultant doesn't get to go ahead for $130,000 worth of stuff. And I just say, and that they get to go ahead for well, we've got two projects, Littleton Common and the zoning, one at 50, the other at 30. So that for the additional 50, there needs to be an indication
Expanded scope.
of what's the expanded scope and the degree to which it's sort of a self-contained unit.
So in other words, let's just make sure not to pack something into that expanded scope that we need to get off the ground right away. Is that-
Right, don't put step one and put step 3
Very good.
in that grant application.
Further discussion? Entertain a motion? Move the Board of Selectmen authorize the Master Plan Implementation Committee to submit an application to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs under its Planning Assistance Grants Program for $50,000 for development of a master plan for Littleton Common and a comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Anna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Ravello, thank you. All right, good deal. Right. Trustees are not here. All right, at this time, if there's anybody that would like to be recognized, just ask the,
Jared Opiori, New Estate Road. I'm sure you folks are aware of the WCVB news story last Friday night involving this community.
with the Braden Lynn to Austin Lynn touchdown pass? Yes, we're familiar. Yes.
Russell Street, substitute teacher.
I saw that, I'm embarrassed as a taxpayer and as a citizen. In my opinion, as I understand employment law, you don't bring personal politics into the classroom. We as the teacher's employer have every right to expect them to behave in a professional manner, and bringing your own politics in, showing disrespect for the flag, sends a horrible message to students. And I'd just like to ask that this board, perhaps the school committee and the school administration, investigate this and make sure that this type of unprofessional behavior doesn't happen in the future.
Thank you. I believe that the superintendent, the principal, and the school committee have all addressed it, and I think that, I think you'd be satisfied with.
They were right on at the meeting. I will say to their credit, before the day was over on Friday, they had weighed in on that, and it was a substitute
Yeah, it
teacher,
was
I
a
correct?
substitute.
I just, like I said, you guys are thinking, I was half tempted to come in tonight, but I respect the flag in this country too much to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Chief?
Acting Chief of Police, I just wanted to remind everyone that the governor, this is the Community Policing Week in Massachusetts. So you see the officers out there at the, they were over at Castle on the Trees today, they're doing park and walks. The deputy and I are starting the first Coffee with the Cops at Donlands on Wednesday from 8 to 10. And there'll be another High Five Friday at the elementary schools on, there'll be a High Five Friday on Friday at the elementary schools. And we'll just be out and about a little bit more than we always are, but we'll be making it a little extra effort this week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be recognized? All right. Next up, we have member updates. Mr. Glavy, do you mind if I start with you?
Yeah, this job puts a lot of tough burdens on members, and last week I took the yoke on to attend a function at business up on Foster Street, which I had not previously heard of, Rhineland TUV. They were hosting an Oktoberfest. It was my day to take Dad out for lunch anyway, so I told Dad, I said, we're getting bratwurst and beer today, and we did, and we had a wonderful time. I have no idea what the company does. I didn't know then, I don't know now.
Economic development right there.
However, I will say this, they are happy to be there. They're a short walk up the hill from the train station, and they were delighted with that. And I did recognize one person who worked there, somebody I knew in a different part of my life, and he lives in Boston, takes the train out, and he thinks that's terrific. And he says, anything you can do to make accessibility to that train station to businesses in town, it'd be just such a plus, just knowing, the folks that he lives and works among in the Boston area. So, I made that a work mission as well as a social visit.
You're a giver. You are a giver.
Well done.
Ms. Napoli.
I just want to remind everybody, the Littleton Athletic Booster Association is hosting a fundraiser this Thursday at the Billiards Cafe, starting at 6 p.m. It's 100 good men and some lovely ladies. This is a great community event because half of the proceeds raised are given to local charities nominated and chosen that evening. Last year, the Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball received a $2,500 donation, and the American Alzheimer's Foundation received a $2,500 donation. So I'm hoping people will come out this Thursday to support that. I also wanted to say thank you to Julie Kolchek. She is a Girl Scout leader who, it's the group that does the Kindness Rocks. So she invited me to meet with the girls last night, and they actually did some special rocks for a neighbor of mine, which was really sweet, so I thanked them for that. And just talk to them about the wonderful gratification you receive from giving back to your community. So they were really cute. It was like about 15 fifth grade girls. They're really a sweet group and a group dedicated to the community. So that was nice to meet with them. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to just touch on goals for a moment, if I may, with regard to the opioid crisis. I wanted to ask the board if they would agree to inviting 2 members of our community who have started a group, People Against Substance Abuse, Donna Kivlin and Janessa McBride, to the next meeting so that they could maybe present to us a little bit more about their organization and what they hope to do with the community.
They've been a resource for you throughout the
Chase,
work.
both Chase and I have met with them together as part of our goals, so I just wanted to talk to the board about inviting them to meet with us. So
You really need to. Their personal and professional expertise is, I think, paramount to understanding what's happening regionally, nationally, and in our own backyard.
Yeah, I think that, I can't imagine any one of us is going to say no to that. So just ask Mr. Bergman if we could put that on the short list of items that we could put on the agenda.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Chase, you ready?
Sure. Last Sunday, Chuck and I had the pleasure of attending the Castle in the Trees Playground 1-year anniversary. And I was actually amazed. When we built that, it looked great, it looked beautiful, and it looks today almost like it did when it was built. It's really standing up quite well. And so we got to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of that, enjoy some cake, and also see the free library that the Girl Scouts put up there, which looked amazing. So that was the retrospective thing. Also a reminder, tomorrow night, Chuck and I again, Littleton, Shaker Lane's Book Fair Community Night is going on. What is it, 5 to 7 or thereabouts?
Yeah, they're about, it might be until 8.
Might be until 8, but if you come at 6:30 and 6:45, you get to listen to Chuck and I stumble through children's books, so please don't miss that.
Wild West theme. Giddy up. All set, Chase?
All set.
Mr. Knox?
All set.
All right. Chase stole a lot of mine with the free library that the Girl Scouts built and have down at the castle is fantastic. There's some little ones that kind of get tired of running around and get beat. There's some books right there at the entrance to the castle, and whoever's got the kiddos down there can sit down and read a book, and it's really a neat little asset that they've added to that. Using the word asset, we've got some amazing assets in town, and being down at the castle in the trees last night, looking over at the basketball courts that were built, and even the amount of parking that we added when we built that. There's been a lot going on down at Alumni Field and Jet Field, and we're really doing some good things to make sure that we're maintaining what we do have, and we're growing and building upon what we do have. So I ask that anybody that is using the assets that we do have in town, just treat them with respect and make sure that we can maintain them for as long as possible. Yeah, everything else you guys touched upon. All right, so next up we have.
We're coming up on a 7:30 hearing, which is,
All right, so let's, so we're not gonna get anything as far as a special town meeting, article recommendations.
come back to it, yeah.
We'll definitely have to come back to that, so, how about the gifts? Police chief and fire chief are here, can we do that? Item number 7, folks? Get the chiefs. Chief King, Chief Blazinski. So you want to take this, Mr. Bergman?
Sure, this is, we again have unsolicited gifts of $3,500 each for the police and fire departments from the Digital Federal Credit Union. And under the board's policy, we have you vote to accept it so that we can take note of it during a board meeting. So very appreciative of the effort, and the chiefs have plans for the funds.
That's the only question I would have is just specifically, it's a $3,500 gift, which is fantastic. And they're always there for us, seems like year in, year out. Chief Blazinski, if you could just let us know what
For the fire
help you to
department, same as last year, we're going to use it to enhance the SAFE and Senior SAFE program. Aids us in the schools, as well as some of the COA functions that we hold over there. So this just really allows us to expand those programs and continue it on throughout the year.
Fire education.
Yep.
Excellent.
That's it. I'm sorry, I was about the SAFE program, could you just?
Students for, fire education, for
Okay.
fire safety. So right now, they do K through 6, they do fire safety, and then 8, 10, and 12, they do CPR for all the students, so that when you graduate from the town of Littleton, everybody is educated in CPR and the use of a defibrillator. And then also, on top of that, we do education for the Council on Aging. We do the free smoke detectors for all seniors in town, smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. And any resident that's in town that doesn't have one or they don't operate properly, they just call us and we supply them for no cost.
Great. The SAFE acronym stands for Student Awareness and Fire Education.
Fire education.
Thanks, Chief.
First of all, I would like to just say, my thanks to DCU. This is something that was unsolicited, and they've done since they actually moved into Littleton. So I don't even know how long ago it is now, but they've done it every single year. We're supporting the same issues we did last year. We're doing our senior citizen luncheons, which at all the luncheons we do anti-scam training and other things. Our veterans breakfast, which we run monthly. Some additional training for patrols, and also for our departmental meetings and awards, things of that nature. Basically, it's really geared towards the senior citizens of our community, is what we use this funding for, to try and make sure we're keeping our inroads in there. We had the veterans breakfast just started up again. It's a joint venture between ourselves and the fire department. We had a great showing. All of the new officers were there, which is great to start to get to those seniors. In the process of, we'll be planning a senior luncheon here shortly to especially get the new officers down there so that our seniors' comfort level is up there with them, and obviously to do some scam training, because let me tell you, having a 90-year-old father, and those of you that have elderly parents or elderly friends, you know that the phone calls are, you know, they're calling every single day, trying to get something out of them, either by email or by telephone. So it's important to remind them all the time about not getting information.
Right. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Appreciate you guys coming forward. And certainly thank you to DCU for these gifts. We do need to accept the gifts under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, so I'll entertain a motion.
Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 53A, to receive unsolicited gifts from the Digital Federal Credit Union as follows: $3,500 to be deposited into a special gift fund account to be used without further appropriation by the fire chief towards costs associated with student awareness of fire education, SAFE, and senior SAFE fire safety education programs of the fire department, and $3,500 to be deposited into a special gift to be used without further appropriation by the police chief towards costs associated with senior citizen dinners, veterans breakfasts, anti-scam community training, departmental training for patrol and communications, and for full departmental meetings for awards and meals.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We do have a public hearing at 7:30-ish, which is item number 5 in our packets, please.
Mr. Chair, do you want me to read it off? The hearing notice?
Sure, Mr. Clerk, that'd be great. Thank you.
Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, October 2nd, 2017, at 7:30 PM at Littleton Town Offices, Room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 82, and the proposed layout of the following as a public way: Macintosh Lane as shown on the plan, Macintosh Lane Road as built, and street acceptance plan, Town Littleton, Massachusetts, prepared for Decacorp by Places Associates, dated August 2017, plan number Macintosh ASB sheets 1 and 2. Copies of the plans are on file at the Selectmen's office and available online on our website at littletonmass.org. All interested persons are invited to attend. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Charles DeCoste, Chair.
Charles. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Okay, so the hearing is open. This time, how are you?
Good, thanks, how are you?
Great, thanks.
P.T. Carroll, Deca Corp., I built Macintosh Lane.
Thanks for coming out, Pete. All right. All right.
So
Go ahead.
I actually still have a punch list, it's all minor items of things to complete. So I was here tonight to ask you to put it on the warrant for the town meeting, so I'm not sure how we're gonna handle it. I understand you guys meet in a couple of weeks again before the town meeting.
Yeah, if I could clarify, the article has been placed on the
Yeah.
warrant to bring to October 30th special town meeting voters, give them the ability to accept the layout.
Mhm.
The hearing tonight would be where the board lays it out. I had prepared the form of 2 motions where the selectmen have one meeting between now and October 30th town meeting. This board next meets on October 23rd. So there's a couple of things the board could do. If all the punch list items were addressed and it was ready to go, the board could adopt it, could vote to lay it out tonight and recommend the article. If all those things are not in place, or there are any concerns about it, then the way that we could be sure that the punch list got completed, is to open this hearing, as we've done, continue it to the next meeting, and then, which, on October 23rd, and then see whether the punch list item things have been done.
Yeah, that would be perfect. They're all minor items, so I don't
Yeah,
expect it's
and
gonna
I
be an
think-
issue.
I
For
think-
example, if you don't mind, some of the punch list items that remain. I know we got an email from Tom Bigelow this afternoon, I just didn't get a chance.
Yeah,
to
that's right.
Yeah, they're all in his email.
That's all of them.
Yes, yeah.
We got, that came from Chris, right?
Right, and Chris didn't have any issues, just a few things via the peer review.
Okay.
So is it anticipated that these things will all get done? So if we
Absolutely.
if we continue the hearing to October 23rd, that we'll be able to see that all those things are done? And
Absolutely.
typically, the board does not lay out a road unless you've actually been satisfied that it's been constructed to satisfaction, because you lose your leverage after you take your vote, frankly. But we have time, between now and October 30th town meeting to make sure that everything gets done.
Sure.
And then the board could, if it's going to, so the board could vote on the 23rd, and we can, could then make a favorable recommendation to town meeting on the 30th.
Or even at town meeting in the
Or
meeting
at
prior
town
to.
meeting, sure, yeah.
So we did in fact place a warrant article on there in anticipation.
Yeah, as far as the terminology goes, it's been a while since I've taken a road through the whole process. It's generally the same from town to town,
For
but,
us too.
it's the planning board.
Yeah. In fact, we needed to get some practice in, so we went and took a couple of roads that we thought we'd already taken 100 years ago, right?
Oh, right, New Estate.
New Estate and Magog.
All right, so the hearing's been open, so we want to do a
Yeah, so you can
continuation.
have- you can have
Is there
public
anyone
input
that,
and-
you just
You bet.
feel like there might be some folks here that may want to speak relative to this public hearing? So is there anybody that would like to speak relative to McIntosh Lane? No? Okay.
Would it be possible for the residents to see the punch list and see what's left?
Address,
for me?
make your name.
Can I just ask that you raise your hand, just
sorry.
stand up and just tell us who
Cedric
you
Williams,
are?
I'm a resident on McIntosh Lane.
Okay.
Oh, seems like I got it, so. I guess I'm
Asked
good.
and answered. See the power that we have? It's the kind of squadron we are.
Hopefully 2 people don't want that, because I think we only have 1 physical copy.
Yeah,
This will be posted, right?
Yeah, yes, I'll post this, but also if there are folks who, I don't know if do you have the email address? I know we had the one email address, so anyway, email Myron at the planning office, email me, Keith Bergman, town administrator, and we can send you out an electronic copy of this.
Thank you very much.
If there's any resident who's interested in that, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
All right. So you guys are good? You get that email and have that
I
punch list?
have one extra copy here if someone else wants it. I'll see who.
All right, good deal. So, motion to continue?
That's what I would prefer to see, if there's punch list items.
Motion to continue?
So we're not gonna close the hearing, we're gonna continue it?
Yeah, continue it, yeah, so that.
Sure.
So moved. Motion to continue. So
October
moved.
23rd.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of continuing the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, so we'll,
See you in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Will the residents get written notice again about the new, or do we just, should we pass it
No.
on? Okay, we'll pass it along.
But, yeah, if you could.
Check the website, call the office, whatever.
Yeah, actually, it would be, if we, do we have email addresses, do you know? Or, no, not really. Okay. Again, anyone who wants to email and then wants to then share with your neighbors, we'd be happy to do. But I'll post it, I'll post the report on the town website as well.
so for anybody any of the neighbors at McIntosh that do in fact want to be notified or find out when we're gonna next meet, we're gonna meet on the 23rd of October. It'll be in here, probably be a 7:30 continuation. If you do want information, you can email Mr. Bergman, kbergman@littletonma.org. Okay? Thank you. Any emails can go to Mr. Bergman. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back up to item 4. October 30th, special town meeting, adopt recommendations for Articles 11 and Article 12, Item A. Let's see, so Article 11 is the tax title property. I see Mr. Venuti in the room as well, so that's helpful. And we've had some additional requests. So we've written the article to offer up 4,800 square feet, a 4,800 square foot lot on Elm Road and 2 lots on Newtown Road to be included in the tax title abutter lot sales program. And that program is established to facilitate the sale of town-owned parcels of land acquired by foreclosures to property owners with a home or building directly abutting the parcel. The goal of the program is to give property owners a chance to acquire a vacant parcel, improve their current parcel, and encourage private ownership and maintenance of land that is not suitable for development. This article also transferred to the Conservation Commission 0.61 acres of tax title property behind the Newtown Road and along a small slice of Newtown Road, which abuts the George and Lucy Yap Conservation Land. We did receive some subsequent requests of folks that who had hoped they were included in the tax title when we made the decision to include this article on town meeting. And I'm assuming that some of those folks are here tonight? Okay.
And that property is 3 Manchester, your property is 3 Manchester?
3 Manchester, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is immediately north of, nope.
Right there.
That one, yeah.
With big 3 on it?
The big 3.
And we're at 410 Newtown Road?
And you're at 410, which is this
410,
one.
which is that one.
So this is the land in question. We had sliced off 4,800 square foot lots behind these 2 parcels. This abutter, or this resident, had come in, kind of had in hand, was kind of landlocked with the land behind them.
Yeah, this is the, and I put the names that are here on the assessor's records, just
Okay.
for reference, but what we're, and it's hard to tell here, let me see if I can use the,
So
highlighter.
this resident came before us and said, is there any way that we can do something? We were looking to put an addition on, they need to move the septic, so they had to bring their septic up to compliance. In order to do that, they would need to acquire additional land. So we had that land that was undeveloped, it had been acquired by the town. We weren't getting any tax revenue from it, it wasn't incorporated into our conservation land at that point. We were trying to find a solution. In doing so, we kind of squared it off and made both of those lots available to 414 and 416 Newtown Road. The tax title abutter program allows for us to sell off lots not to exceed 4,800 square feet. So that's the size slice that we incorporated on those 2 lots. Basically a 48-foot deep by 100-foot wide lot. As part of that, this warrant article does include 11 Elm. I'll ask that just kind of disregard that for the conversation that we're about to have, because this doesn't, I don't think, have any impact on the folks at 11 Elm. As part of this piece being all owned by the town, there were some compromises made that evening where we felt as though conservation would be okay with us splitting off those 2 lots if in fact that parcel with access to Newtown Road would be designated as conservation land and incorporated back into the George and Lucy Yap conservation parcel. So, you've Mr. Brett?
I'm Brett, yes.
Okay, Mr. Jeffries,
Sure.
located at 3 Manchester. It's up to you. If you're comfortable there, if you're comfortable here, wherever you feel.
So, my wife and I became aware of the property just by inquiry about trees and maintenance of the property.
And through that conversation, we learned about the sale of the land. So when we moved into the property about a year and a half ago, we were aware that there were some discussions about that land going to the town of Littleton. But what we thought, our request is personal, where our home is situated, which is not reflected in that picture, where our house has been built all the way to the back end of the property. So our request and our application was submitted as soon as we possibly could, and we were aware of it, to request some of that land, although minimal, and we had a letter we delivered to the treasurer. The other challenge we have is the parcel itself and the process. So the parcel itself is zoned as it's residential. And if you look at the GIS map on the town site, we abut that property, and we were also not notified, and we believe that we should have had an equal opportunity to make a decision similar to the other properties. I think we thought that it was just town land, there was nothing going to do with it, because quite honestly, it's not, the land is, you can't build on it, it's turned into a lake. We had ducks out there last year. So our request, why we submitted our application at the time we did, is when we were made aware of it, we immediately took action to do a lot of research. I won't take credit for it, my wife did it all as I was at work. But we feel that the town hall coming up to bid on this property based off of the process didn't allow us for an opportunity to bid on land that we would have if we had known it had been up as a property that considered the details of the butter program, that we should have been part of that process. If we had come in and asked, then we could have had maybe a different conversation as just described, where 416 asked the question, but a discussion took place that 416, we should talk to 418, and because of 418 and 416 living next to each other, both of those properties were able to get a slice of the land. Now, the Yap Conservation property is quite big. If you go down Manchester Drive, across from Rosewood, there's town land that people can access too. But in terms of our request is minimal to be considered for a smart parcel of land for the ability to extend our property and our stone wall in due course. As we look to expand our house, maybe a screen and porch, something. But the challenge is, because we're so close to the stone wall, the builder actually put a propane tank in the back of our house. So it's a logistical nightmare, and I also have 3 kids, and you can see my property is quite complex in terms of the organization of it, and I own an old farm road as well. So our request is to consider our application, considering the process. We believe we should have been informed as an abutter based off of the facts we've gathered, and that's kind of why we're approaching the Selectmen tonight to consider that before it goes to a town vote. Our feeling by going to the town vote for land that is not yet conservation land, and because a conversation took place in the same evening, the town, when they hear conservation land, I don't think we have a shot for our application to be considered, and thus why we've approached, to come to town hall and approached you all to consider that. So that's kind of, what we're looking to do is that conservation, just the consideration of our request. It's the only time we have an opportunity to expand the property, and that's why we're here, why I'm here tonight on behalf of my family.
Okay. Well, does anybody have any questions of Mr. Jeffries?
Is there a specific configuration or square footage that you're looking at?
So we're requesting a 10 to 20 foot expansion along our back border, which is at 126 mark. Our request is about approximately 2,500 square feet, or a fifth of an acre. It's very small.
Would extend all the way out to?
It's 40 feet wide, I believe.
It is 40 feet wide.
This is 40 feet wide.
Yeah,
So not looking.
You're asking, would it connect?
yeah, does it?
Thus restricting the access out to Newtown Road from the conservation land, is that true?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see what the configuration is, that it would extend the 2 lines
Extend the 2 lines.
downward,
Down this way,
and then square it
Cross.
off?
20 feet, and then close it?
And for the purpose of discussion, yes, that would be
Yeah,
the
okay.
configuration. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
who owns this parcel
That's
here?
all the
That's all the
So
property.
that comes out to here?
Yeah,
That's about
yeah.
Newtown Road. There's
yes.
parking here, there's a community garden.
Okay,
Yeah, the property has access on Newtown Road and on Manchester, at the.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that piece there isn't the only access? Is, right, okay.
And
No, and it has not been used as access.
Jamie,
Yes.
you want to,
Yeah.
Mr. Jeffers, are you comfortable with Mr.?
I'm
They're
good
coming
now,
up,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
okay. You kind of both
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
same ask, so you're both
Sure.
comfortable
In
with.
Congress, they have panels.
It's fine, it's all right.
I was going to say, I don't need to echo everything that he said, but my husband
Just
and I
introduce yourself,
are
if you would, I'm
in
sorry.
agreement with that. I'm Jamie Earhart. On the map, actually, 410 is listed under Johnson. That's old information.
Yeah,
It should be under Earhart.
okay.
So that's, we own it now. And we would be have a similar ask that that our property would be extended along Newtown Road, primarily for landscaping purposes. We actually have a building on the corner of our property, which is like 5 feet off the property line. It's very close to the property line, so having increased space would allow us to actually be within town bylaws.
Setbacks.
Town zoning, yeah.
Pre-existing
Requirements. And in case you're not familiar with the, land there, just south of what you see on this map, south of the community gardens, there are actually 2 access points to the land there within several hundred yards of each other. So we sort of feel like having one 5 houses down on a side of the street that doesn't have a sidewalk is redundant and that would not be our choice. But, yeah.
If I made the same question Mr. Bergman asked of Mr. Jeffries,
Yeah.
what would your intended, if you were drawing a line on that, would you just continue that line straight across? This line here?
We would love to do that if we could just straight extend our property line, but I don't know how many square feet that is offhand. I know it's 40 feet wide.
It's a little too big. It's
It
it'd be
is.
about 6,000 square feet, right? 40 times 150. Go to some schools.
So you can extend it 37 and a half out of that 40 feet and be
Okay.
within the 4,800 square feet.
Okay, so then
Strictly speaking.
what happens with the remaining 2.5 feet?
The abutter program, if I recall correctly, the wording on the 4,800 is a little squishy. I would imagine if we were to transfer this via the abutter program, we would probably find a way.
Steve probably knows it cold back there.
Maximum of 4,800 square feet.
Is it,
Yeah.
it's firm on that, is it?
And to be honest, we wouldn't be looking to spend more money than that. So, I mean, I'm gonna be very truthful. So I don't know if there's a way that the Levers would be interested in
Sliver?
some land. I don't know. I know that they are extending back. I don't know if they would be interested on extending.
Yeah,
this
the-
side.
the
Yeah,
way-
it's just- it's generally less than 48.
Yes, generally, yeah.
Generally. So
Squishy.
We could
I wonder
certainly,
if we
yeah, we could
fine-tune
certainly
it.
have, or the DPW director who prepared this plan do a precise calculate. I mean, he had to do the precise calculation of the 2 lots that have been carved out behind 414 and 416. So I'd want to ask him to do that for the portions that abut
Yeah.
your 2 properties.
Yeah, because those, at least historically, that property and our property have been owned by the same family. So it's sort of squishy as to where the property line actually is. Like, our driveway is probably sort of on that property a little bit.
The way the program works, that if there is a parcel of tax title property that's in the tax title abutter lot sales program, it is made available to the immediate abutters, plural, so that while we can have the discussion and carve it out, at the portion that immediately abuts Newtown Road and your property, it would technically be offered to the property owners on both sides. Yeah.
And that's, if you look at the GIS map, that's one thing that, why we questioned why we were not informed of the opportunity, because we're clearly in a butter to this property. And I think where the conversations became a little confusing was around the title that it was going to be conservation land. I think we were already under the impression that the total parcel was already zoned that way, and it wasn't even up for sale. The town had taken it in, and we thought it was a donation by the Yat family to the Yat conservation land. That's where the questions come in and why we're asking, because we should be notified definitely an interest to do, as what we're doing is not asking a lot to reconsider before it goes to a vote. Being labeled as a shift to conservation land with this, I didn't think we would have an opportunity to debate it there in front of a large forum. I think we'd rather have it be considered or reviewed before it comes back up for a town vote.
I have to comment, but Mr. Venutis.
I just want to clarify
Sure.
something else, and Rick asked a good question also. For the abutters program, it would have to be 4,800 square feet or less.
Correct.
Which means each of those possible divisions would be less than that 40 feet of frontage that's there.
Correct.
So if it's, say, 20 feet in each case, there's still a 20-foot section there. The selectmen
To access.
also have, to access. The selectmen also have the ability, however, to sell the entire 40 feet, not under the abutters program, but as a open bid. And we've done that before with several parcels in town. So, I mean, that's just another alternative if they wanted the entire 40-foot sliver going. It wouldn't be, and by that, it wouldn't be under the tax title abutter program open only to abutters. It would be going out for general bids,
Similar.
and anyone could bid on it. Yes.
Similar to Narcissus last year. Hang on one second, if you could.
I'm just curious, this land was acquired through tax default?
Tax title.
Okay. Does anybody know what was owed on the land? Like,
It's irrelevant.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't factor into
Okay.
this equation.
okay.
Mr. Finley.
Rick Finley, Beaverbrook Road. On that open bidding, is there a minimum,
The selectmen set the minimum.
sets a minimum, okay, that would be good. My concern is I'm not sure that there's access to the, what would become conservation land for maintenance purposes, so that it might just grow up in invasives. I think there's a wall on that back side, and I don't think there's penetration through it. So my suggestion would be to go to this open bid parcel and divide the whole parcel up, let those people own all the way over to that wall, so that there's basically no conservation land there. It would be maintained better, I believe, in that case.
Okay.
Is there a wall on the south side of this wall?
On there is one on the south side also.
There is, so we've looked at it, we've walked the space, so yes, there is an access road. The property's not maintained, that's why we had this discussion, so we understand it's a new property. But if you look at, to her point, from access points down where you have access there, and also the town owns the land, it comes off of a dirt road that would be free and clear to probably have an access point there for the whole property. And I'm assuming the Yap family still farms that land. I'm not quite sure, but they were out there in this fall without any issues to get through that whole backland. So again, the access road is irrelevant. I know it's boxed in, but again, if it goes out, then that's something for to consider, I guess. It depends on where it is. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to be the guy that was drawing the lines here tonight.
Oh, sure.
I'd definitely involve our town engineer to do that, but just so we can kind of understand in principle what it is that you're looking for, to try to help understand that. I'm not sure, not to, with all respect, Rick, I think that if it goes out to open bid and we set the minimum, that would be another town meeting process, and frankly, the price at that point may hinder these folks from being able to be involved in it. Whereas the tax title program has a formula in order for us to calculate what the sale price would be. So we'll get a different kind of control on the price there.
Just one more question for that land, in the way it's zoned, so, for the point of what could possibly happen, right? It goes into a different program, I hear that, but it's been very clear, and even when our builder took over that property behind is not buildable. So with that, if it did go out to, say, an auction style type of program, would that change? With
I can't sit here and tell you that it wouldn't change. I think that, I think requirements, and you could probably answer this better than I, are getting more stringent and less stringent, but they could be a different, something could change. Sure. You know, so I wouldn't think that it would be buildable. You know, to your point about on Golden Pond back there. Change your comment?
Well, as the person, I think probably least comfortable with taking that corridor and putting it into private hands, I wanted to sort of explain the basis and the thought process behind it. Keith, would you mind if I stole your connection real quick, just so I can?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, we have to open it, public hearing.
Oh.
Can you guys just hang in right for sure? We need to open this, let's see, the clerk's on top of it, see that?
All I need is your connection, Keith.
Can you
Display
steal your
this.
connection to display what he's trying to?
Oh, sure, yeah,
what he's trying to
that's-
make?
No, yeah, sorry, I don't need your actual computer.
In the meantime,
Just,
we,
just unplugging you, that's all.
Yeah.
well, they read it, you read it?
The Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, October 2nd, 2017, at 8 p.m. at Littleton Town Offices, Room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass., on the proposed transfer of certain Cooper Farm parcels to the town of Littleton and the following article inserted onto the town warrant of the October 30th, 2017 special town meeting, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire from Matthew P. Field and Michael S. Field, trustees of M&M Realty Trust, the land together with any improvements thereon located in the town of Littleton, Middlesex, South County, Massachusetts, shown as open space area A, open space area B, open space area C, open space area D, and Lot A on a plan entitled Cooper Farm Estates, Open Space Development Definitive Subdivision and Over 55 Housing Development Special Permit dated December 15th, 2016, and last revised March 17th, 2017, prepared for Markley and Rubin Civil Engineering, which the plan is recorded with the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds as Plan 409 of 2017, provided that all such property shall be in care, custody, control, and management of the Board of Selectmen, and that open space A is to be held for recreational, conservation, and/or agricultural purpose. Open space B and C are to be held for agricultural purposes. Open space D is to be held for open space or agricultural purposes, and Lot A is to be held for affordable housing purposes and/or public use as determined by the board, and provided further that the acquisition of said property, said subject to such terms and conditions as are agreed by the board, and to take any action in relation to thereto. Copies of the plan are on file at the Selectmen's office and available online at littletonmass.org. All interested persons are invited to attend. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Chuck DeCoste, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We are now open for that, but we can just leave that open now, Mr. Bergman?
Yeah, you can
We need to continue?
table it until conclusion of this agenda.
All right.
Sorry, I
So
stole that,
table.
Keith, I forgot this is an old computer, it doesn't even have an HDMI. But if you could get the aerial back up for a second. My issue is more with that corridor, and that's why when the abutters to the south came forward looking for the 4,800 square feet, I wasn't excited about it, but that 4,800 square feet didn't infringe upon that corridor. And here's the value of the corridor, and it's not people access that I'm principally concerned with, because as you guys accurately state, there's personnel access, just a fair distance, fairly short of there. My concern is that corridor can be ecologically important as open space to serve as a connection between Long Lake Park and the Yap Conservation Land. And the reason that corridor is different than what's south is that all the way along the property line, your property line and then the property line to the west, there's a hedgerow. And that hedgerow is forested and connects ultimately the Long Lake Park with the Yap Conservation Land. And it's exactly that. So if you could open up the town GIS, well, here you can start to see the start of it, but this whole forested corridor runs all the way over to the Long Lake Long Lake Park. And my fear, or my opinion is that that corridor presents more value to the town and to you folks as open space because it allows that movement of wildlife. And we tend to look at, like, who cares, right? It's foxes and squirrels, but it all fits together in the sense that if you inhibit the ability for things like fox to move between those two, they stop eating the mice and the ticks go crazy, right? It's very simple things like that. That by removing that corridor, that corridor is essentially the only forested corridor that connects Long Lake with Yap. Because if we go south here, it's all through farmland and open space. So by allowing wildlife to move between there, I see a substantive open space value to that corridor that doesn't necessarily exist with the 4,800 square feet right there. And so my argument is that that's better off in the hands of conservation than it is in an individual space.
So if, in my opinion, I didn't know, because I had to pick up Mr. Yap's dog every other Tuesday and take it back. So I didn't know there was a connection point there, but I understand that. But for the plans that the other properties, 416 I believe specifically, their plans for that extension of their properties, I know it doesn't inhibit the movement of wildlife, but they're going to be putting a septic tank there. They're going to make that a play area for kids, and in fact, that's going to actually it's going to make it less of an attractive place for the movement of animals. I don't see it as being a disadvantage or advantage if we change that corridor. I don't think we're doing anything at all, and in fact, by giving that land up and extending properties, actually takes it back a notch versus what we were planning to do with it.
The substantive difference is that I wasn't excited about either.
I understood.
But the corridor represents a means by which wildlife can move from one to the other. The property in the back of 416 does not inhibit that. That is ultimately what the distinction is in my mind. And they are moving it back if this were to go through. They certainly are moving it back. They're not coming back to the hedgerow that is on the property line. And furthermore, it maintains some amount of space even between their property and this hedgerow back here. And so the distinction is, I think, substantive in that one closes off a corridor and adds to fragmentation of our open space, and the other doesn't. And in that sense, I see a substantive value in the open space of that corridor. And I would also add on top of that to my mind, there's also a difference in expressed need at 416 versus the desire to move a deck back. And that, I think, weighed in my decision as well.
Just want to keep in mind that what we have done enables town meeting to vote on whether or not we want to do this.
Yes.
The folks at 416, in fact, did express that they wanted to put a septic system back there, but they fully disclosed that we don't know whether or not we'd be able to put a septic system back there. So they have to do some engineering. They have to find out whether or not they would want to do that. But we did our part by putting it into tax title so that it would be part of the program if in fact they were able to do the engineering and they could put a septic system back there. And we, in our infinite wisdom, decided to kind of square it off by including behind the levers property, and as kind of a compromise to conservation, that's when we thought that we would include, I think Mr. Glavy brought that point forward to say, why don't we offer the remaining land to be transferred over to the Yap conservation property.
Yeah, if I might, Mr. Chairman, first of all, I want to echo, support everything Chase had just said, and also I think it's important to take a step back too, that the distinct from the other, town land sales program, the abutters program has been historically in place essentially for the uses that we were anticipating for these two previously met lots, which is to expand, to trade off, a loss of land in exchange for at least a perceived opportunity to improve public health safety through, improve septic systems. It isn't, it's never been a promotional program in the town. Wherever you have land, expand your lot. Nor is it the town is an out advocate, advocating the sale. These, residents generally identify the sites themselves and come forward. So I don't think it was incumbent on the town to go out and, and market this to individual property owners. But when this one, popped up on the map with just that, layout, it just became obvious, to my mind anyway, that, that I could feel comfortable granting the land that would, that would allow the potential. What are you trying to throw me off my game, Chuck?
No, I was trying to square it off, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, so anyway, even the fact that we can accomplish two ends at the same time, that both had a public benefit, the health potential of better septic systems, plus the adding to the quantity of the YAP property, I just thought it was a win-win situation. This starts to move us away from that potentially, and I'm a little torn on that. And I would specifically, I noticed, I'm going to put him right on the spot. Andrew's here, the only Conservation Commission member I see here. I wonder if the Conservation Commission or you individually have had a chance to think about that. I defer to the chair when you want to get into the audience participation here, but.
No, if Andrew has anything to add, sure, perfectly appropriate.
So the Concom did review the proposed plan that's in front of us right now, and we agreed with it. I can't really comment for the board on this new proposal, but I would agree with Chase about the corridor for wildlife.
That's your personal?
That's my personal, yeah.
I would also note that with respect to wildlife corridors, this isn't something that we're coming up with off the top of our, in fact, new developments that have gone in have actually gone in with wildlife corridors in place for these exact purposes, to some extent, I think, at the expense of housing and things like that developers might want to put in. So I don't want you to think like I'm just tossing a roadblock up that I've cut out of whole cloth.
I guess my only comment regarding that would be that the land wouldn't really change. Like, from our perspective, we're not looking to build something on it. We're looking to maintain it, essentially. Because right now, what it looks like is we have a side yard that we're not mowing. It just kind of looks junky. No offense. But it's not forested. It's just like a field that's not mowed, and it's actually being overtaken by bamboo, which we've taken upon ourselves to try and get rid of, which is a difficult task.
You should speak with Mr. Finley back there.
Yes. So, because it is on that property and beginning to come onto our property, so we're trying to decide how much can we do with somebody else's property.
Right.
But so I appreciate you taking the time to explain that, and that that is something that we value, and that we live adjacent to that land is valuable to us, and so we don't want to do something that is going to inhibit that. So just from our perspective, the ability to have that would not change.
I would argue that your concern about invasives is well heard, because anytime we let land just go fallow like that, we sometimes put ourselves in a worse position by doing so. I would suggest that the proposal in front of town meeting would actually help alleviate that, because now that otherwise orphan parcel is now going to get folded into the YAP conservation land as a whole. So rather than being an orphan piece of town land that no one really has care, custody, and control of, now it's part of a greater whole in which there is a substantive management plan, so that things like invasives don't take over. In fact, Mr. Finley spoke to that point precisely about his concern with being able to access the back of that parcel to maintain invasives.
Are you committing Rick to cleaning up that property?
While we're still on it? I did see a hand in the back.
Mark Rambacher, 205 Hartwell. I had a question. First, the property that was actually originally up for sale, the septic's not failing there. They want to expand, correct? So it's not that they have a need, other than they want a bigger house. and a bigger septic. So we're not selling it because
so
they're in a
there
failure
was-
situation.
I appreciate that, but they came in, they presented a case.
I
and
understand,
we-
but it's not the same as the properties along Long Lake or something where we're saying they need the property for this. My second question is, can you sell these with conservation restrictions on them so that if these owners wanted the 20 square feet or 20-foot access, that you could say they can have it, but they can't develop on it?
There's a lot of different things that we could do. One of the things I was just going to do is, as a summary, I was going to offer up that we have an article on town meeting right now. And it's, I read, kind of the meat and potatoes of it. So we've got, there's a few different components. We've got 11 Elm incorporated in this article. Then we've got these parcels being added as part of the conservation, tax title of our lot sale program. And then we have the .61 acres being added to the George and Lucy Yap conservation land. I'm gonna offer this as a potential alternative, I guess. In order for us to do anything, let's say we all decided this is the right thing to do and we should let you all carve off a piece and be part of the tax title program. We're a little bit late to the game, so in order for us to do that, it would have to be amended on the town meeting floor. We have asked for town council's recommendation on whether or not we can do that. There's four corners that we have to kind of work within if we're going to change an article on town meeting floor. So that involves town council as well as the town moderator, what he will allow. What I could offer up is the potential that we could potentially, I'm speaking for myself, I'm not saying this is the input from the board. One of the amendments that we could potentially make as the Board of Selectmen, if we decided to do so, was we could eliminate the portion where we donate back to conservation the .61 acres. That leaves it in tax title so that we could do something at a subsequent town meeting. So it wouldn't necessarily slam the door on you. If we accept it as conservation, you will have no opportunity. Unless you're able to do an amendment on town meeting floor and you're able to get town meeting to vote in favor of it. 2/3 vote. So there's ways that we can massage this. However, there are limited ways that we can do this. So that would be one potential solution that I would offer up, that we could almost table that conversation by having further discussions, and if it was the pleasure of the board, to allow these two residents to have an opportunity to be part of the tax title program. Comments, discussion?
I have, if you could put the map back up too. I think this board, when it made the choice to square off everything and include, I can't see numbers, but
414 and 416.
I think once we squared off and offered land to 414, then we've opened the door to other people who are abutters. I don't see how this board can suddenly say, okay, we're gonna let them have it, but you can't. So that's my concern about how we're proceeding. It's maybe we made a mistake when we did that, I don't know, but right now, in my opinion, we gave it to, well, we haven't done it yet, but we're proposing to square it off and give it to that person, but telling other people, no, not for you. And that's, I understand what you're talking about, the corridor and stuff, but I just have a personal feeling everyone has the same opportunity.
So I was going to say, from looking at the records of the meeting minutes, and 416 was the original requester, and the 414 may have not even considered this until 416 said, hey, this is what we're doing, and that's why we're here. And from that same type of conversation is, hey, we're not involved. We did speak to the Kerr family. We did speak to other families, and it's just, that's why we're here, is a proper conversation did not take place, and we're recognizing ourselves as abutters for reasons of protecting our properties or expanding our properties for different reasons, but yet also protect ourselves from possible different uses of what essentially is a lake when it rains. We don't want people walking, the foxes and stuff, yes, but we don't want that road to become another also access point for the yacht property, or find where that property, that parking lot is. That's another reason for this. So that sums up where we are, the discussions, the conversations, not being part of it, not process followed. Appreciate the efforts of the town, appreciate the efforts of conservation. Selfish reasons on myself, possibly too many kids at my house already, but still, it's a fair shot, fair conversation to allow us to make decisions that other properties need to have.
Yeah,
The
I
idea
don't
that,
disagree.
the idea that you presented of possibly making an amendment where that land, the L, essentially doesn't go directly to conservation, and maybe it does at a future point, and I, could go either way on that, but I would just appreciate having the chance to discuss that, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that we saw an opportunity to solve a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just aesthetically or for whatever other reason, we thought we will just square this off, and it seemed like a good compromise to, Chase was
Yeah.
not pleased with giving up a potential piece of conservation land. So it was somewhat of a compromise amongst ourselves.
But it wasn't slated for conservation as yet, although it is now.
Correct, correct.
Or will be.
Correct. And, for your lack of foresight on our part, and I'll take as much blame as anyone, for not, when we carved out that extra 4,800 square foot lot for the levers, for not seeing that may create some injustices for you all. I think that we may have shot ourselves in the foot. Now, falling back on town code, technically, we were within our rights because we can protect land and to forget who made the point that we don't necessarily have to market the
Right.
land.
It's not our obligation to make everybody
Yeah.
aware of what's
Yeah,
out
in fact, the tax title butters lot sale program, as it was written and approved by the Board of Selectmen, is supposed to involve an assessment first of whether the tax title property has any use for open space or other town purposes, before we even put it out in the program.
So this kind of pushed us
And
down
so
the road a
we-
little bit.
So, we had indication from the Conservation Commission, they wanted the whole thing, so.
And I would say that we didn't discount, or we didn't ignore the value of that corridor that we discussed. That very much came up in our discussion, the value of that. And the additional piece of property behind 414 was, in my opinion, as close to equity as we could have come and reached an agreement on it. So I completely understand that not all 5 properties that abut the town parcel were offered portions of that. And in that sense, it is not equal. But the pieces of property within that town parcel, though it is only 0.8 acres, are themselves not equal. They present different values with respect to open space. And that's ultimately the deciding factor in my mind, is that the open space that we were not utilizing or giving up with, associated with 414 and 416, was consistent with the expectations of the abutter program. The open space lost associated with your 2 parcels and the third parcel there changes that balance. And so it's not, I don't think it's advisable to go forward and carve off the Conservation Commission component of that, or the donation of that piece to CONSCOM, because they were very much part and parcel of the same thing. That carving them off and the rest of it going to conservation was the balance that we struck.
So if, and again, maybe I know this is going way beyond, I mean, we can circle this conversation for forever. The town has made a decision, we didn't have an opportunity, it was a tax, it solved somebody's tax issue, right? And the town agreed to take over, call it a donation, what you will. The town made a decision under the cover of conservation to gain a 50-50. You're able to gain money, tax dollars, from those properties being extended. I'm here to offer that purchased that land to allow it to be and not the whole thing, there's a corridor of stuff, but the town made a decision to profit or to sell that land, to get it off the books, not profit, sell it off to, because they don't want to pay for that. That's where the conundrum here is. It's a mixed match of messages are being delivered. So our fair shot is to have been informed, and because of the programs itself and how it's classified, I understand that. When one property made a discussion, then that should have been discussed at one property, not to, hey, tell your neighbor 414. That's where we got into the circle, and that's what brings us to the table today. Is I respect conservation, I respect the corridor, I respect the town's taking a property. I want the property maintained, and I have to take care of my own property better as well. But by allowing it to be considered to move forward, and the timing of this puts us in a bind that we're being forced by town rules, that we may not have an opportunity to debate this the way we should have, and do without notification. So, I mean, I just think that we're in this situation that we're now going to have to go in and we're trying to stop.
You're getting plenty of opportunity to make your case now, and just to clarify a couple of points, your neighbors at 416 and 414, we didn't go out and approach them. They found it upon themselves to approach the town, and the board.
416.
Yeah.
We just
squared it off. 416, right. The town followed its policy to date, so we haven't done anything outside of our own guidelines adopted.
But your town, the parcel is zoned for residents, and therefore we abut that, and there should be some sort of level of notification because of the way it's classified. It's not conservation now, the town's being asked.
You're correct in that statement, that
Well,
it's not classified as conservation. The conservation had made determination that they wanted that as conservation land. Had 416 not come to us,
It would've been conservation
total
lands.
hypothetical,
Yeah.
this conversation never would have come up.
Yes.
So they did come forward.
Yeah.
And we had in the back of our mind that this was intended to be conservation land.
So did we.
Correct.
That's why we didn't even approach. I mean, if we didn't have to ask for trees to be trimmed, never would have been.
So with all due respect,
Yeah.
as far as policies are concerned, there's no notification under the abutters program. There's only a notification under the sale of town-owned property, which is not taking place. And so I understand and completely agree that we should have reached out and spoken with you as a matter of being good neighbors. But in terms of policies not being followed, that's inaccurate.
Okay, well.
So, because the town is not selling it to conservation, but donating it, then you don't have.
We're just
to-
classifying it,
You're
really.
just classifying it.
Still town money.
Okay.
The only, just to kind of close this out, I think, in the event that we're not able to get to some sort of an understanding or an agreement at town meeting, if this does become classified as conservation land, and I'm asking this question, did Rick just leave?
No, I'm over here.
And Andrew maybe.
We should probably introduce who they are for.
I think Rick did introduce himself, Rick
Did,
Finley,
okay.
yeah, and Andrew from Conscom. In the event that the town does possess the land as conservation land, and I can't speak for other boards or commissions, but is there such a thing as an MOU that perhaps Jamie could enter into with Conscom to maintain that land and
We don't know what.
What's an MOU?
memorandum of understanding?
Okay.
And that's a two-part question. Let me just, and the other one is, and there's nobody here from the ZBA, but if in fact you wanted to put a deck on, but you weren't able to do so because you're too close to the setbacks, maybe we could offer, some forgiveness on the setback.
ZBA's role is.
Absolutely, that's why I said it, ZBA is not here. And I said, I'm not making any representations that we say that's okay to do, but that is another avenue potentially, if you wanted to put a deck on, because you may not have the amount of land that you need in order to, the setback, in order to build, there may be the opportunity in front of that board. I'm just trying to play it all the way out in the event that we don't.
And to offer another option along the lines of what Chuck was saying earlier, if there were to be
Stand by, Rick.
I'm sorry, Rex didn't. If I don't say it now, I'll forget it in half a minute.
Let him go.
The scenario that Chuck painted about amending it in town meeting floor, which is probably the only scenario that would work, I would say if you wanted to pursue that, you ought to get, just for your own purposes, before the Conservation Commission, between now and then, plead your case there, and I'm sure we wouldn't have any problem offering whatever guidance council gave about how they would go about it, right? I mean, the council's not there to assist an individual, but we can share the information that they've already generated, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if someone wants to offer an amendment or a motion, let's make sure it's well-formed
Right.
and accurate.
Yeah.
So basically, we can help you to craft an amendment, if that's what it comes to. Basically, we wanted to hear your side of the story, essentially, right? But those couple of scenarios that I laid out are what are available to us. That's why I'm trying to look beyond that, and if in fact this all passes and that becomes conservation, I wanted to find out. So Rick, if you could chime in now.
I just looked over here to talk to Andrew. If it does go to conservation, you could become a steward of the property, and if maintenance is your main concern, you could probably get permission to mow it several times a year, keep weeds down, or, so it's, I'm not sure how
And
much.
not pay taxes on it.
I'm gonna be totally honest, my main concern is on our property, there's an apple tree and a chestnut tree that my children love. And we eat those apples and they climb that tree, and that's a great space for them. So even if we got 10 feet and you guys still had your access point, I mean, we're open to compromise.
Okay, and I think we do have some avenues that we can approach, and I'm not even gonna just throw Keith under the bus tonight. If you wanna reach out to me, I can help you navigate what next steps you might be able to take to make this happen, yeah. I can jot down my email address too for you guys, and
Sure.
actually,
Okay, Bergman.
it's K. Bergman.
Yeah, also known as.
So, you got a pen handy?
Yeah.
So just Chuck D, not Public Enemy, LTTN @gmail.com.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm more than happy to help you guys navigate this and try to find what resources are available.
And I guess I would also add that we have another meeting between now and town meeting. And so if you choose to craft the language that might supplant what is currently in the town meeting warrant, and want to talk with us about what that looks like, we would certainly invite your comment and input there rather than doing it in town meeting, and that might also give you an opportunity to
Practice.
to practice and make sure you get the language.
Chase, I just got done kicking it over to the Conservation Commission. Don't you bring it back.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry that we're in this spot.
No.
But hopefully we can work towards a resolution.
Okay, great.
Good luck very much.
Thanks for coming in.
All right, we did open public hearing, Cooper Farm, which was item 6. So, all right, so you have that map, Keith?
Yep.
So there's been a lot of discussion around the different lots on the Cooper Farm property that would be in the town's care, custody, and control. Based on the HCA, or the host community agreement that was signed by the Board of Selectmen with the developers, we had identified these lots. The blue A is Lot A, that's the housing lot. The black A is the field out in front that many folks are under the understanding that was strictly recreational, that would be playing fields. The D down the bottom is an area that is listed as conservation and/or agricultural. We had some conversation around that being, the availability of that being able to be hayed. So I think that we need to identify that as agricultural unless there's some restriction under conservation where it can be hayed as well. And I don't think we're able to do that. B and C were strictly agricultural, so we really have need to have some conversation around what the pleasure of the board is prior to special town meeting on Article 9. And I think, I don't think, the conversation is around Lot D, Area D and Area A, Area 51. So, any questions, comments to kind of get the conversation going, or?
It's a public hearing.
Right.
I mean, I would say first, with respect to D, and Andrew, please correct me if I misstate how we viewed it during conservation. When we were looking at Lot D, certainly a big chunk of Lot D is wetland and is always going to be de facto conservation, regardless of what you call it. The non-wetland component of Lot D, I understood to be agricultural or conservation in purpose. Now, I know different documents have called it different things. In fact, I want to say planning saw it as agricultural. We may have seen it as conservation. I would prefer to stick with conservation and/or agricultural to allow it to fit its best use.
And it is written as an and/or, right? Yeah.
The article is written as an and/or.
I have no problem with that, yeah.
So D, we're comfortable with as an and/or?
Yes.
Okay, so moving to Area A, which is the black A. This is the one that, there's been quite a buzz around town. I think there's some folks here that may have some comments where this is a public hearing. If we don't have any, members of the board have any comments on Area A?
Anxious to hear them.
Mr. Chappie.
Chair, I have a question. Greg Champney, I'll say this from the FinCom perspective, I guess. D, going back to D,
Yep.
is there any access to that? It doesn't look like you can get at the property.
There- It was specifically permitted with access in mind via planning and conservation. So there's a right-of-way through the cul-de-sac and down and around into the, in fact, I think planning spent quite a bit of time with that access, and so did conservation.
Okay, I'm good with that. And then on A, we've done a great job in the town of Littleton conserving land. And I think you have this set for recreation. Is the plan for like an athletic field? Is that the plan?
That's what a lot of
I'll speak as Chuck DeCoste, 609 Newtown Road. That was my understanding.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'd be an advocate for that because we've done a lot of conservation throughout the town, but we really haven't done a good job at acquiring land for athletic or type of
Active recreation.
active recreational use. So I think that would be a good rule.
I think that was the intention of the developer as well, with with the hopes of meeting the wishes of Vinnie Cooper.
Right.
So the trust and the developers had hoped that that would be recreational to meet his hopes and wishes. Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Rick?
Well, I was at a meeting when the developers who were representing the Coopers came up with this solution, and I do believe this is the best, having recreation, conservation, or agriculture. Going back to the haying, a lot of our conservation land, we hay as a way of maintaining it, so having that ability, if we don't start haying that right away, it may, a playing field may get voted down at town meeting, and so we should be haying it during that interim period or eventually. So I like the way it was, I was at the meeting when it was decided to do that, and I believe it should stay that way. That was what the developers wanted.
This one here?
Yep.
So I respectfully just disagree. I don't, as a member of the Board of Selectmen at the time, when we wrote the HCA, I never remember being anything but recreation. In fact, I understand this parcel over here being incorporated as part of that recreation field on top of the septic system.
This was one of their last meetings, and I was at the meeting, I promise you.
No, I don't disagree.
It's in the minutes somewhere. But that's the way it was voted in the end. And I think it makes the most sense to be
Okay.
able to use it for any one of those.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGavin?
Sure. Dominic Iver, 43 Foster Street. And I do have some written testimony, which I'm sure Keith will distribute to you, but it hadn't been sent earlier.
He said it.
And here's written signature. And the written testimony is much more articulate than I'll be, but let me try to summarize it. First of all, the Littleton Conservation Trust endorses acquiring this land, because that's part of the public hearing. And as we know, parcel A seems to be sort of the focal point, and there are some differences of opinion, and I'll address a little bit of that. First of all, let me thank you for having a public hearing on this. It isn't mandated, but it's the prudent thing to do, much like the hearing before this, where you have a discussion and you have various viewpoints proposed, and you get to weigh different ideas. And there's a lot of history here, as we all know. In fact, we thought we'd be acquiring this in a different fashion than the way it had been acquired. I should also point out the Conservation Trust is supportive of acquiring open space for all of its purposes: active recreation, conservation / passive recreation, and agriculture. And a lot of this is in agriculture. And also, it's good to see all those move ahead. There's a lot that has happened recently for promoting active recreation. It hasn't come easily, but certainly 300 King Street was supported by the CPA, which the Conservation Trust brought into the town, so we have capacity. The track's been there. Alumni Field's just been open to pleasure a lot of people, and you've just had the report on the Littleton Fields a master plan done by Gale, which outlines a lot of different possibilities, looked at feasibility, and has shown some roadmaps, some alternative roadmaps. It gives you a process and a phased process. So let's address parcel A, which is one of the chief concerns. And the argument I propose is that it would best serve the public purpose as an agricultural field. And let me explain why. I believe there's some compelling reasons. First and foremost, at the beginning of this, when Church Meadows was up for sale, there's a great interest in protecting that, the prime agricultural land, and hopes to merging it with the Cooper land. And parcel A is the connector. And in order to do that, the Littleton Conservation Trust members and members of the Congregational Church of Littleton, both hard-strapped, because Congregational Church was revamping their facility, had a lot of...
Could you make this pertinent to?
Yes, yes.
We all know about Church Meadows, so. Just
I was
make it
making the point that they're hard-strapped. They donated to the town of Littleton, very relevant, $25,000 to acquire Church Meadows over and above the assessed value to compete with the private enterprise that wanted to purchase it. And that was with the hopes of merging it with the Cooper land. And once again, the connector is to parcel A. Also at that time, we brought in the Trust for Public Land, a nonprofit public interest group, to raise funds in hopes of acquiring more land than just Church Meadows and the contiguous land. Now, that did not happen. The opportunity was not there, but there was interest in that. So A is a prime agricultural land, as is Church Meadows. And the idea is to merge the two. It makes it convenient for farm equipment, tractors, and so on to move back and forth without going out to the state highway. Also, there was a great interest expressed in town through a lot of letters and so on to protect the scenic corridor that happens along Great Road. Having parcel A in agriculture would do that. And there's also the issue of cost. There's no incurred cost by maintaining that in agriculture, as opposed to the cost that would be required to produce an athletic field, a necessary parking lot, and additional operation and maintenance costs. So there's a cost avoidance there too. And finally, the point that I like to make is when the Morgan property was acquired, the idea was for conservation. And we looked at the Cooper farm. So we looked at a trade-off that We looked at the Cooper Farm agricultural land, was much better prime agricultural land, much more agricultural value. So we said, okay, let's look at the possibility of developing some of the Morgan land for some athletic fields in the open field area. And Mr. Paul Glavy was involved with acquiring the Morgan land. So, you know, we already sort of made that trade-off, and that's also incorporated in your more recent Littleton Fields master plan, looking at the possibility of using Morgan land. So, once again...
Can I jump in here since I've been cited by name? I mean,
Yeah,
I was involved in getting the Morgan property. When we bought it as general public land. There was no conservation restriction. We specifically put it on later
Yes.
as a, and we used it as an asset to acquire part of the restriction on the Prouty property. And there were 3 parties to that agreement. I'm actually getting into this discussion for other purposes. The New England Forestry Foundation, the town of Littleton, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which put a lot of money into that proposal to keep the Morgan property as conservation land. Subsequently, there was an agreement reached between NEF and the town of Littleton, which gave away that right, but the 800-pound gorilla remains in the room that the state put up money to keep that as conservation, and they weren't a party to that agreement. But anyway.
No, I agree with you, and I think we're both on the same wavelength from both.
Well, I didn't want to leave the impression that, you know, that I either had a role in or agreed with the conclusion that the Morgan property was in play for conservation, for recreation, because...
Yes, and I agree with you, I well understand that.
Until the state says, that $1 million we gave you, hey, no problem, and I doubt they will, then I don't think we're there.
Right, and I guess, yeah, and I agree with you completely, and we both know the history very well, maybe better than most folks here. But the point was, you know, we were looking at, okay, what's the value of Morgan land as agriculture versus Cooper land, and the Cooper land and parcel A is much better. So there were discussions of that nature. So anyway, those are the points made. Conservation Trust will still, you know, identify parcels as we have the Park and Rec, including some which we think might have been better for recreation, other things for conservation, and some things for agriculture. This, I think it's best met with agriculture. And, you know, there's a lot more to go for active recreation as well as conservation and agriculture. But in this case, I think that's the best purpose. So, thank you. Any questions?
Nope. Nope.
Thanks. And thank you, Paul.
So, just to, actually a comment, just relative to, goes back up again?
One side.
Yeah.
On, just relative to the scenic corridor, it was very much a part of the conversation with the Board of Selectmen at the time, with the developers, to retain some of that, because it was certainly something that we heard from our constituents, which is why we have, as you're entering town, parcels B and C as designated as agricultural land, and strictly agricultural. Anybody else hoping to be heard tonight? I'm gonna go with Alicia Day first. Now, what do you need?
Okay. Alicia Day, that's okay. Westchester Drive, but I'm also the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Education. We did recently do a field needs assessment, and one of the feedback pieces that we did get is that we do need to look into expanding the athletic fields. One of the big issues that we currently have with the space that we have at this point in time is that the fields aren't rested enough. So therefore, the use that's happening on a seasonal basis, clearly we can't use it in winter, but all of the 3 seasons that the fields are really getting a heavy use, dosage of use. So that's something that Gail had asked us to look into, was finding other options to find locations where we may be able to rest a field either halfway through a season or just for an entire year if need be, which we did just recently for the middle school field that lacrosse and football had played this past year. And that field looks very phenomenal. They've done a really good job. So that's now back into rotation. But we do, as far as our maintenance plan goes, we really do need to look into the options of being able to expand upon fields simply for the fact that we do need that opportunity to rest those fields. So this is a wonderful opportunity to have a location to be able to put something in, whether it's a practice field or we could actually have a legitimate soccer-sized field. So I think from our department standpoint, we really would look at this as being a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to have a recreational field. I know the park commissioners haven't voted yet, but they will do so this upcoming Tuesday to, I don't want to speak for you guys. You guys will vote how you vote. But we will talk about that this upcoming Tuesday. So I guess that's, our side of it. I don't know if you gentlemen want to add anything more additional to.
No, I would piggyback on Mike Brew, 22 White Pine Drive, and on the Park and Rec Commission. I think given the fact that, just to echo what Alicia said, we're short on fields based on the field study that was done by Gail. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that parcel would be the cheapest to develop. Some of the other possibilities are, in the millions. I think that one's pretty close, but, to take that off the table and not give us that opportunity, I think would be a mistake.
Mike, any comments? Commissioner?
Michael Vassar from 200 Gross Mill. Yeah, but we're talking about at least keeping it, the option to keep it on the table, which I think is prudent. Speaking to Don's point, Gale Associates, one of the properties they talked about was Cricket Lane. That's not viable anymore, so you can't look at that property. And I believe Cooper is something that we're taking a look at as well, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Sure. Alicia, and Park Commissioners, do you guys have any concerns with the Cooper Field being far away from the rest of our athletic facilities? Or do you think if we were to develop a field there, it would see comparable use to a field that's more geographically proximal to where we're currently playing?
Ideally, I would love to be able to have some sort of complex where you would be able to have more together. I think I've talked about this before. I really struggle with the concept of parents, having one kid that's in soccer, one kid that's in baseball, one kid that's in football, and they're consistently having to drive to drop kids off at different locations, and they themselves have no opportunity to take a breath for themselves. They're just driving around from one location to the next. If we were able to create a location where we could have a fair amount of fields, have, a walking space, I think that's what's so alluring about being able to use Morgan for that possibility, because you could have access to the walking paths, so the parents could drop their kids off, hang out, watch them practice for a little bit, but take that 15, 20 minutes to walk for themselves. And that's so very important these days, to be able to take those breaths. As parents, you don't get that opportunity very often, so take it where you can. So ideally, that's how my vision would be. I would love to see that, but when we look at the reality of what we have in town, we're not set up that way right now. That's not something that we can just turn around and do tomorrow. So the reality is that, I don't want to see the playing fields get back to a state where they are a liability issue and that, children could get hurt. I don't want to see that. So if this is the opportunity for us to be able to have a backup field, to be able to spread out that usage so that everything stays in a good playable surface, then that's the most important thing in my mind.
Yeah, I would add that, no matter what community you go into, typically each school has fields on it, and then there's other fields around town, whether we look at Westford or Groton or Acton, any one of the fields. Groton was fortunate to have a bunch of land that was, basically the sand pits that became Cow Pond. It's a
Right.
big complex with all different, their highway department's on one side of the road, and they have this huge complex of fields, which is fantastic, with walking trails, and Dunstable has a similar situation. But, right now we have Kerper, which is not attached. Yeah, it's not attached to any other
Right.
fields, and it's pretty well attended.
Right.
But that's the nature of parenting in today's age with kids going in 15 different directions. You tend to pass off your kids, and you take them this week and I'll take them next
Easy
week.
walk to Dunkin' Donuts from there.
A new sidewalk. Anita had her hand up. Hang on one second, Rick.
I agree with Alicia, but I think...
Just introduce yourself, please. Sorry.
Anita Harding, Russell Street. But I think it's important that we really take a really strong look at that, and acquire it for a sports field. We need more sport fields. That's on a main road, easy to find if it's used as a major field for other towns to find. And because it seems to be very dry and not wet and swampy. It should be easy to develop.
Thank you.
If I may,
Sure, sorry, Rick. He trumps you.
during the whole process too, I was able to talk to former selectman, what's his name, on New State Road.
What's that, on what road? Jack Homer?
Jack
or-
Homer. I had many conversations with
Look
Jack.
back a few decades, that's all.
Jack Homer, who was a good, he's friendly with the Kerper family.
Right.
And in conversations with him, he thought it was gonna be used for recreational, because he talked about it being named the Kerper Field, so.
Cooperfield.
Cooperfield, yeah.
I threw you off the Kerper thing.
Yeah. I couldn't even remember Jack. Jack's gonna kill me now.
He's watching, I'm sure.
I was standing in line with them at Market Basket right before the meeting.
We've lost the Cricket Lane opportunity. I would suggest, Elizabeth, I've talked to you before about the field that's owned by Park and Rec across 495 on Russell Street.
All right, so this is kind of, yeah, I appreciate that.
No,
But first of all, through the chair, and second of all, that's not really.
I'm just.
And that is actually something I specifically brought up last week when Gail was here.
Oh, okay.
But no, I do appreciate that. That is a parcel of land that we do currently own, so development costs are reduced when we own it.
Sure.
Which would be the case here if we, accepted this.
Mr. Chair, if I may
Yes,
just
please.
chime in. I am for using parcel A for recreation just because of the history of the Cooper family, Vin Cooper, and having known his nephew Frank Cooper personally. I think it would be a great tribute to the Cooper legacy if it was used for recreation. And plus, we certainly know the need, based on what the assessment just came back as. It's certainly a need in town for it, so.
I think it is a good compromise. If you look at B and C, it's still up there. Lot B is 3.67 acres, Lot C is 0.97 acres, and Lot A is 4.38 acres. So it's kind of equitable. So it's a little more on the agricultural side. I think it's a really good compromise. I feel as though it's a good balance.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we're getting into what everybody's feeling is, and that likewise, as a big advocate of the view sheds and maintaining the corridor, in my mind, agricultural use is obviously a way to maintain that, but recreational fields are also a way of maintaining that, and we have, both needs. So we should get used to a future where we're making those kind of decisions that, there's more than one way to get your open, view shed corridors protected, and this plan, I think, addresses a lot of needs wisely.
Can you just talk about how is this going to be presented at town meeting? What will we be voting on? With the and/or, I just want to make sure I know what to expect.
All right.
That's what you decide.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we are deciding it tonight, but the draft, we have the draft in there, right?
You can look at the motion.
Yeah, the proposed
Correct
motion,
the yellow
you can
page.
strike, and what I've done on the screen, I've annotated so that they're each of the uses, so that if you want to remove any, then you can take them out of your motion.
Strike them by color? Does that help to answer
So
your question?
you guys are looking to possibly amend that tonight, finalize it? What I see up on the screen may not be what is on, you're going to
Right,
decide tonight.
that's the text of what's in the warrant, of the uses that are set forth in the warrant. This is an opportunity tonight, if the Board of Selectmen wishes to either put those in as is, or to, you can't add other uses for particular ones, but you
Right.
could reduce the number of uses.
The one point I would make with parcel A, I don't see conservation of parcel A as being something that we're envisioning, but in the interim, I would say until it becomes recreational, I would advocate for an and/or for parcel A, simply to make sure that it's utilized for something until it is turned into something recreational. So to the extent that we may not build a field there for 3 or 4 years and it can be mowed for agricultural purposes or haying, great, cool. That sounds fine to me, but also with the understanding that the long-run objective is active recreation.
But couldn't we,
Stipulate.
well, even without that language, and I'm asking this of Keith, I guess, is acknowledging what you just said, Chase, that it may take a few years for it to become actively used as recreation. There's nothing that prevents us from using it agriculturally and maintaining it.
And if that's the case, then that's fine.
Is that
What I
right?
would hate to see is for it not
Yeah,
used
go fallow and
productively.
turn into, yeah.
Especially if the distinction is if all we would do is mow it, if it was called recreational, but a farmer could come in and hay it if it was called agricultural. Those subtle distinctions I'm not familiar with, but my biggest concern is letting it go fallow.
A couple of issues that we'll want to be advised by town council on. First, from our discussion last week about agricultural, that there's agricultural under one statute, which sends it to the new agricultural, to the agricultural commission, if you accept that, or you reference the existing statute, which would have it go to the selectmen. The form of this motion doesn't say which. We need to be advised by town council. I'm not jumping to conclusions on who you'd want to have in charge of agricultural property, but that needs to be addressed. The other is whether that statute somehow has extraordinary conditions under which you can remove it from agricultural to recreational use along the lines of, we certainly know you need, once it's in conservation or open space use, it takes a special act of the legislature to move it to any other use.
I would say that, so based on that, I would say that, well, I have two things to say. If we were to change that to just recreational use, and obviously we would maintain it, and that would be our expectation, that it would be maintained as maintained. But as far as the agricultural piece, this is Article 9, and the agricultural article is 12. Is it 12? AgCom?
It comes after, yeah.
So technically speaking, if we voted on this and then incorporated the later article, which would have AgCom being responsible.
Unless the AgCom article passes on the call of the articles and is adopted unanimously at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah.
But I think in any event, though, I would think it important, and you can, in your vote tonight, you can direct, which, if you'd like to have town council prepare a motion that specifies the Board of Selectmen is in charge of the property, you can say that, just to exclude the possibility, because we haven't had the discussion with the Agricultural Commission about how property is done.
Can I ask a question on that? My reading of that, my memory of our discussion of that in the reading of the proposed article to accept the state language, it still comes back to the hands of the board to determine, is that right? No, no longer?
No, it goes to, it's votes of town meeting, that it's either, and it all depends on which statute you accept. So, but for property that has, town council's point was, for property the town meeting has previously said goes to the Board of Selectmen, it doesn't go away from you until you declare it surplus. So that's how we deal with Nagog Hill Orchard and with the Church Meadows. For this property, I think we need to just say, and make sure the motion reflects, by choosing the appropriate statute, whether it goes with you or goes with AgCom.
Okay.
Because ultimately, as recreation, it's going to go to Park and Rec. So, on that score.
So, I think we're all okay with B and C as being agricultural. Do we want to put any kind of stipulation on B and C, with that being the care of custody and control? Do we want to state that it's Board of Selectmen, or do we want to just let the pieces fall where they may?
My sense is I'd rather, until we know exactly how things fall out with the AgCom statute, we can always go, it's a one-way street.
We can always give that away.
We can always go the other way.
You can always change it.
But it's hard to get it to go back the other way.
I agree with that. Which suggests that we should have language in here.
I think we need to add to that, so in that motion, I would say open space areas B and C for agricultural purposes under the care, custody, and control of the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Open space D. So that should
Could you put the map
So
up
it's
again,
it's listed
please?
as open space and/or agricultural?
No, split screen capabilities.
I think B and C was just agricultural.
B and C is just agricultural, yeah, so we're on to D now.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah, should that
should have
be
conservation.
conservation instead?
I think it should be
of open space?
conservation instead of open space, right? Under D?
Oh, yeah, open space is the word that's used in the host community
HCA.
agreement, but we
Okay.
can say conservation.
We can leave that. No, if that's what it says in the HCA, we can leave that there.
Does that create any legal confusion down the road? No? Same
It's,
thing.
it's conservation. It's a synonym.
Is that gonna,
It's,
oh, well, this is just on
Lot A for affordable housing purposes and/or such other public use as determined by the BOS. We're okay with that? So I guess the only further discussion we have is around Area A. So what, do we have a consensus on making that recreational purposes with maintaining it as needed?
Poll the board, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, that's my preference.
as long as it can continue to be used for
We maintain
agricultural
those,
in the interim. I think that also makes the long-term objective a little bit clearer if the interim use is whatever we deem appropriate.
So we would need to put that, some sort of amendment on that. Open space area A for recreational purposes, which will be maintained.
As determined by the Board of Selectmen until developed for recreational
Recreational.
purposes?
That
Is
works. Yeah. Think Dan will catch that on the replay?
we'll have town council draw up an appropriate motion.
Thank you.
to reflect that. Can't do it on my feet now, so.
Okay.
Could I have
Rick,
one
sure.
question more? I mean, Chase, were you indicating that we possibly could be growing corn on that as opposed to just doing hay?
I am not remotely qualified to answer that question.
Well, I'm just saying, are we eliminating agriculture?
No, I think Chase's motion, as I understood it, was is at the
Direction
discretion of
of the
this
board.
board to maintain agricultural use until it's developed as recreational, which I
Right.
think is broad enough to be.
You, I thought you were asking if, I don't know.
What do you got against corn anyway?
It's like a Iowa caucuses type question. Yeah, I mean, my goal very much was to make sure it could be used for whatever agricultural purposes are appropriate in the interim with the long term. Now, what I wouldn't want to see, and that's why I like the language as determined by the Board of Selectmen, is an agricultural practice that is antithetical to use as a recreational purpose 3 or 4 years from now.
Like a pig farm.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like
Or
that-
planting an orchard.
That's not a viable agricultural purpose in my mind if our ultimate objective is recreation. But sure, if corn or hay or soybeans doesn't.
I didn't know whether, Chuck, whether you were saying maintenance, whether it was just gonna be hay. I'm just thinking if, I'm not sure how the others are gonna be in agriculture, but if it is a farm situation, they might like to have corn there.
My hope is that the other B and C
Mhm.
will in fact be engaged in some sort of an agreement, a lease with the town, and they will engage in agricultural as they see fit for those lots. And I too like the way that Chase worded that, because it gives us the
Sure, yeah.
ability to
Yeah, can you
allow
give
some
that to me
flexibility.
again on A? I just wanna
Open
make sure.
space, area A, I'll get to it, let's just 1 second.
Actually, for
Recreational purposes,
For recreational purposes.
semicolon, will be maintained as determined by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I simply took the language from the Lot A piece.
Okay. See what he did there?
So you want to leave in agriculture? Or take it out?
I think we specifically call out recreational purposes will be maintained
I got it here, you want it? Sure.
Until developed.
And shall be maintained for agricultural purposes until such time as determined by the Board of Selectmen.
Alicia, you had a comment?
I did. If the board's objective is for this to become an athletic field, I would ask that we add the word active recreation in, because there's a very specific definition on what active recreation is versus passive.
I'm okay with that. Is everybody else okay with that?
Yeah.
So I was, always understood.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments before we close this and take a vote?
Mr. Houston.
I'm sorry, Rob.
Rob Houston, Meeting House Road. I just was gonna suggest, agricultural purposes, I guess what, agricultural purposes as determined by the Board of Selectmen, right? I mean, you want control over the agricultural purposes. So I think you just need to put the Board of Selectmen after agricultural purposes.
Shall be maintained in the interim for agricultural purposes.
As determined by.
As determined by the Board of Selectmen.
Well,
It just takes it away from the as determined by, until such time as determined by, but council will do it, I guess.
Well, you're council, what the heck, you always get a little free service here.
Not that kind of council. Anyway, I just thought you wanted a little more flexibility on the agricultural.
Yeah, I thought that sounded a little awkward, just
Okay.
flipping the
Yep.
phrase. Are you doing something differently there now? Yeah, okay, good.
any other
Before
comments?
you went and voted on it, that's all.
Appreciate that.
Sounds good.
Any other comments, questions? All right, while you're doing that, motion to close the meeting?
Close the hearing, rather?
Hearing?
Yeah, motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we're closed. All right, any other deliberation or? Oh, we're looking. Space area for recreation purposes and shall be maintained in the meantime for agriculture purposes as determined by the Board of Selectmen. Does that work for everybody?
Yep, I like it.
So is that motion as written,
As presented.
as presented? Acceptable?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. It's through, we closed.
Now that you voted on it, can that be amended on the floor to bring in those other two, conservation and agricultural?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, because it's in, because the
Within the four
article,
corners.
it's within the four corners of the article as posted.
Okay.
So,
Okay, we still have an article left, right, the school curb thing, or do we?
Yes.
yeah, you didn't actually take a vote under Article 11,
Tax title.
tax title.
Do we want it yet?
I wouldn't do it tonight.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it tonight. either.
Let's wait.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to wait on that one. And,
Thank you for coming.
You know, I
yeah.
sympathize with them, but the.
Article 12.
Originally they suggested we weren't doing our job. It's not a goddamn job. It's-
Hey, we're still on
Well, I don't care.
Article 12, supplemental FY 2018.
Diane ignored that.
All right, so we've got Article 12 before us. Mr. Glavy?
Yes, sir.
Article 12 before us.
Which one's
This is
Article
the
12?
school
I lost my papers.
I lost both.
supplemental FY 2018 capital items from available funds. This is for the school curb and sidewalk repairs.
Agenda item 4,
Article 4.
recommendation, it's Article 12.
It's Article
item
12,
A.
it's agenda item
Oh,
4,
okay.
sorry.
Just to go back.
Go back to the one that we were doing, the tax title. All right, so we've got,
Put it up on the screen.
thank you. $99,000 to be expended by the highway department and the school committee for curb and sidewalk repairs at the middle and high schools.
90,000. Oh,
Yeah,
90,
yeah, it's
99?
99, yeah. I had a typo in the motion.
Okay.
I double checked it against the article.
So there's, a
99.
lot of the curbing around these two schools has failed, so
Is there anybody with a sewer there, or is it just old age? I mean, there's nothing old there. I mean, that.
We can place blame if you want to.
Who did that middle school?
No, we put in rolled concrete curbing, and in New England, doesn't hold up. You know, so we've got plows that are running into it, we've got plows that are running on top of the sidewalk. We've got sand and salt that's being spread on it, it breaks it down, so I think that's
That's what happened.
that's what happened.
Okay, just asking a question.
No,
And, yeah, we let developers do it all the time.
we do, in New England. All right, any further discussion about this, or you good with it? We can take a vote on that, we didn't, just, the motion is presented with Article 11 and 12, but just
Yeah,
ask
you
them
can
to
just read
receive
this
the motion.
motion.
We can
Move
read
that the
this.
Board of Selectmen vote to support the following article in the October 30, 2017 special town meeting and direct the preparation of motions to be moved and seconded by said board. Article 12, Item A, school curb and sidewalk repairs for $99,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we did police and fire.
No minutes, right?
No minutes, no,
No
sorry,
minutes.
Diane,
Public
still
hearing.
working on
I guess that's it, we need a,
them for executive session.
pardon?
Ready for executive
We
session.
are ready for executive session. Maren, do you have something to add?
Did you vote your recommendation on 12A?
On 12A,
Whichever,
That's the school curb we
no,
just did.
I'm sorry, the
the tax title, we did not.
That's
master
11.
plan, the master plan.
Oh, yes,
implementation.
yeah, we did.
The
Yep.
recommendation,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
Hard,
Have you been waiting
hard
the whole
fought,
time?
but unanimous.
I think it was you for that.
We didn't have any discussion around well, that's Thursday, that's their article, right? For,
You've already voted to recommend the articles that the planning board has,
right, okay.
the zoning
We did.
articles.
Although this is a good
In light of-
opportunity to plug planning board's public hearing on the zoning articles at 8 o'clock on
Thursday
Thursday.
night, this Thursday at 8 o'clock, yeah.
This room.
This room.
This room.
So 8 o'clock Thursday night, right here, planning board's going to be talking about the zoning articles that they have on the town meeting warrant.
Housing generally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And marijuana.
Oh, that's right.
As well as the marijuana moratorium article, which, that's going to be interesting.
The new and
in
improved.
light of the Attorney General making a decision. All right, so we need to go into executive session. I'll entertain a motion to do so.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, Clause 3, to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the town's union, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the board, not to convene an open session thereafter.
Second? It's been made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. So folks, once we go into executive session, we will not be coming out of executive session. That when we adjourn the executive session, we'll be adjourning our meeting for the evening. Our next meeting is the 23rd of October. And again, there is a planning board meeting this Thursday night at 8
8 is the public hearing.
8 PM is the public hearing, right in this room
Our
to
next
discuss the
regular
zoning
meeting.
articles. Our next regular meeting is October 23rd. All right, so,
As opposed to our next meeting, which is just
correct.
two nights away.
All right, so we've got a motion, this is a roll call vote. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Mr. Gervin? Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
Mr. Glady? Aye. Chairs in favor, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, folks. Have a good evening.